so we can talk. If you're drunk on me, yeah. I said you're drunk on me, yeah. Ooh, you wait up, am I wasting time? I gotta hurry up and ride. I cut through the traffic lights just to get a piece of pie. I wanna bump and grind and move with baseline. And if you say it's fine, it's tonight, it's moonlight. It'll be shining through, yeah. It's tonight, when the mood's right. It makes you wonder what you're under. Cause you're drunk on me, yeah. Drunk on me, yeah. Drunk on me, yeah. Drunk on me, yeah. You make it so we can't walk. You make it so we can talk. You're drunk on me, yeah. Drunk on me, yeah. What you doing? Happy Sunday. Oh, did I spell it wrong? Holy smokes. No, I did not. Ha! I did. Sorry. Fixing. Did I spell it wrong in the show title too? Oh, man. No. All right. I'll fix it. I'll fix it. I'll fix it. How embarrassing. It was just a typo. It was just a typo! Actually, I was just trying to check you guys. It was a trivia question, actually. It was trivia, remember? It was actually in the game. I was just messing with you. Hello. There, all fixed. See, I got it. Everything is fixed. Hey, we've got to take a pre-roll, everybody. Going to take that pre-roll in 20 seconds. Taking a pre-roll in 20 seconds. Be sure to get yourself subbed to the channel, and then we'll get ready to get started. Donna Joe is in the green room.
everybody. What's going on? Good evening, good afternoon. Whatever it is, maybe it's good morning where you are. If you're Dr. Iron Chef, it's good morning. What's up, everybody? Welcome in to Talking Trek Live Between the Arcs with very special guest, Bubba Joe is here. He is here, and I did my homework. I spent time this week, and I watched Star Trek, the original motion picture, as that was my watch-through assignment. And we're going to talk about where the original series kind of got its new life. We're going to talk about the movie that all brought it back together in 1979. And we're going to talk about how, in Bubba Joe's words, Star Trek ever survived. In the meantime, let's hit it up with a Talking Trek server sound off. You guys go ahead and punch it up right now in the chat. Let me see what server you're hailing from, and we'll get you started. Noon Whistle kicking us off on server 29. What's going on? Tarpey on server 70. Peter Swanson on 92. Thank you, Sherlock Holmes on 27. Benny Hills Ghost on 42. Thank you so very much. Appreciate that. Robotsky, what's going on? Hello, Harry. Good to see you. Nice to see you, bro. Candy White on 24. Thank you. Pong, number 56. And Alicia on 701. Ben to the Robot on 51. Isaac on server 8. Wood Cannon on 35. Wilson on 36. Keymaster on server 14. Thank you, Biker on server 91. I feel like my audio is a little off. It might be right. Turn that back down a little bit. Is that better? Looking good? Looking good? Biker on 91. What's going on? Amber Latera on 49. Kirok on server 61. Thank you. Kilroy on 702. Thad on the flagship server 15. Captain Shaw on 137. Insidious 1 on 405. James the Boost on 89. Louis P on 20. Madrox on 8. Shiz on server 24. What's going on? Peregrine on 8. Keymaster on 14. Quake on 106 and 158. There you go. Jan's on 156. Jandrel on 32. Thumbelina hanging out on 24. Angry Lou on server 36. Kevin on 145. Ace on 41 and 98. Don Zeno on 136. So early. Yeah, it's because Bubba Joe has to get to the early bird dinner. All right, listen, I wouldn't have ordinarily gone this early, but Bubba Joe, you know how Bubba Joe is. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Bubba Joe's got to get the Ryans here in like the next hour. All right, doing all you can eat noodles. All right, Bubba Joe. What? Oh, hi, there you are. What's going on, Bubba Joe?
You say that. You say that, but I think this is about the time we normally do our podcast when we get together.
It is. I have to find your button. I don't remember what button I had you on. Let's see. Hold on. I'm gonna press this button. No, you're not on that button. Well, not on that button. I don't remember what button I had you on.
I'm not worthy to be on that button.
No, I don't remember what button you're on. Let's see. We'll put you on button 4.
Hey.
You're supposed to be on button 5. Okay, here. I'm gonna move to slot 5. There we are. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a Wild Joe!
Thank you all.
I got it.
I am here representing the High Holiday.
The what?
The High Holiday.
High Holiday. All right, I'm going to, you know what?
High Holiday. H-I-G-H. High Holiday. The High Holiday of May the 4th.
Oh, yeah, that other franchise thing. Gotcha. I'm going to, you know what? I'm going to change your button. I'm going to name your button. There, now it says Bubba. All right, here, what was this one? That was Iron Chef. I'm going to change that one to Iron Chef. Let's change that one to Iron Chef. Here, I'll go back to your button. I just needed to, I'm going to update all the button names.
I understand.
That way
during a live show is the appropriate time to be doing
that way I don't have problems with this in the future, okay? Let's see. We got Beck, Hammy, Griffin. Okay.
Not off of the show, not during, some other time. During the live show is when you should be doing this.
Absolutely. We got it figured out, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, we're fixed. Bam! Louis P says, Chloe P says hello. Oh, hello, Chloe P. How are you? Welcome in. May the 4th be with you, Bubba, says Tarpey. Benny Hill says, are we talking about Babylon 5? No. Today we're actually talking about something a little bit different.
Interestingly enough, I'm almost done with my rewatch of Babylon 5 there, Benny Hill. So I'm on Londo is about to be elected.
Spoilers!
Made emperor.
Spoilers! Listen. We were
a TV show from the 90s.
We were joking about this earlier today or yesterday. I told Bubba, I was like, we're going to have to mark this show full of spoilers because I took a ton of notes on the motion picture. He's like, it's from 1979. I'm like, I know, but listen, some people might not have seen it yet. Just saying. All right. Spoilers contained within. Today, we're going to be talking about Star Trek, the motion picture. Bubba,
Is it that late?
Huh?
I was thinking this was from like the 60s.
No, they were, dude. So the original series, 67, 68, 69. Okay. That was the original series. 10-year hiatus. The Star Trek motion picture was 1979.
December 8th, 1979. And it looks this terrible?
Oh, come on. It's 1979, bro.
Yeah, and Star Wars looks amazing in comparison.
Actually, funny, I made a note about that. I'm going to talk about that coming up here in a little bit. But before we get started, ladies and gentlemen, it wouldn't be a Talking Trek podcast with Bubba Joe if we didn't, in fact, actually bring you some stupid news. All right, let's do that. Yep. It is time for the stupid news. A dramatic video captured a man this week, Bubba Joe, fleeing a charging polar bear in Norway after dropping his gun and hopping onto a snowmobile. It's truly scary footage. I'm afraid that some of you guys might not actually be able to bear it. Bubba, you're supposed to fake laugh.
I'm waiting for the funny ones.
Oh, okay. Alec Baldwin's... All right, this one's really bad. This one's actually really bad. Alec Baldwin's infamous movie Rust launched this past week. It actually came out Friday. Some people aren't sure if they want to see it, but plenty of moviegoers are apparently willing to give it a shot. Bubba, come on, man. Why are you being so rude?
See, that's funny. You thinking that I'm going to laugh at your jokes is funny.
All right. I got another one. Blake Lively is in the news and was pictured carrying a Judith Lieber, am I saying this right? Pepperoni pizza purse worth $5,700, Bubba Joe. It's the biggest waste of money on pizza since the last time somebody actually ordered Little Caesars. Yeah. He smiled. He smiled. I got to smile. Actually, the cost of that purse might make you want to puke.
I mean, the joke doesn't make sense because Little Caesars is cheap pizza.
I mean, but it's still not good.
It's the cheapest pizza you can get.
Well, listen, the cost of the purse might make you want to puke, so it's actually a little more like Papa John's. Okay. All right, let's see. What else do we have? Bubba, I don't remember it being this hard.
That's what she said.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bubba Joe's back. New video has captured a moment that a massive brawl broke out among Carnival cruise ship passengers in Texas. There was severe bodily harm, and after the passengers were done with the all-you-can-eat buffet, the fight caused some damage too. But the brawl resulted, Bubba Joe, in more than a dozen people being banned from the cruise liner for life, which means they're going to have to find somewhere a little classier to vacation, like a trailer park or something like that. I'm not sure. Something down the street. Marco Beltrami, the composer behind the music of the first 4 Scream films, has revealed that he will, in fact, be doing Scream 7, which is simply code for I really need the money. I do not like, Bubba Joe, I do not like the way that you are looking at me right now. It makes me uncomfortable.
So you can just stare into your soul.
You're judging me.
Well, the only difference is I was always judging you. You just couldn't see it.
We got to get him off camera. All right. Fine. You know what? It's my turn now to judge you. Ladies and gentlemen, over to the sports desk with Bubba Joe. It is time for Talking Trek Sports.
All right. You know, we're in the high baseball and basketball time frame, right? And hockey, if you're into that sort of thing. If you're from the Great White North, we got playoffs going on in 2 leagues, so I'm sure we have some good news here. The Lakers were eliminated from the NBA playoffs this last week, losing their series to the Timberwolves 4-1. That's a pretty bad. That's not very good. 4-1.
Yeah.
The Lakers pooped the bed even more than the Scopely execs in charge of the DTI store.
He doesn't even play the game anymore.
Oh, did you see, not basketball or hockey, but did you see that the Kansas City Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce was in Vegas recently?
Yes, actually I did. I saw it on TikTok or something like that.
He gushed on his podcast. He gushed about his fun boys trip to Las Vegas this last weekend on his podcast. It was he went kind of on and on about it. However, this really confused Las Vegas Raiders fans. They're not used to seeing super talented football players in Vegas.
I'm not laughing.
NFL,
no, not.
Yeah, go ahead.
Nope. Won't do it. I'm stone cold on this one. Not doing it.
So I can look at the camera. I've got my notes for the news over your face, so I actually can't see your reaction, so I'm good. The NFL has fined the Atlanta Falcons $250,000 and their defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich at a separate $100,000 for the prank committed by Ulbrich's son. It's this really terrible thing. Excuse me.
Yeah, bless you.
Excuse me. Oh, okay. So bad.
That's where this joke is going right here.
All right. Let's try this again. Oh, man. All right. One more time. The NFL has fined the Atlanta Falcons $250,000 and their defensive coordinator an extra $100,000 for the Shedeur Sanders NFL draft prank committed by Ulbrich's son. However, this is not news to the Atlanta Falcons because they're used to blowing lots of money after the Kirk Cousins contract.
Oh! Not laughing.
All right, we got one last one.
Not laughing.
The San Francisco 49ers. I love how we are in the middle of basketball, the beginning of baseball, and the end of hockey season, and all of the jokes that are good are about the NFL. I'm glad that they continue to give us all this content.
They really do. It's so much ridiculous.
The 49ers made George Kittle the highest paid tight end with a 4-year, $76 million extension.
Wow.
Which is a lot of money for a tight end. Which is really good for George that he got paid because it's the only way he's getting another ring.
Oh, because you'd have to buy one. Okay, I get it. Got it. You almost missed me there, Bubba. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Bubba Joe with Talking Trek Sports. Nice. Thank you very much, Bubba Joe. Appreciate it. Yes! I lagged.
Sport. Yes.
I was lagging. Sorry. Give me a break. All right. There you go. There's Talking Trek Stupid News. Thank you very much.
I didn't realize we were running Twitch through STFC.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Ransusi says, hashtag just stick to sports. Everybody has indicated that your jokes were better than mine.
Well, I'm sure that your jokes were good too. You want to run through them again?
No, I'm good. Thanks. Let's take a look, everybody. 1979, Star Trek The Motion Picture is released 10 years after the original series goes off the air. First thing that I noticed, Bubba Joe, we watched the director's cut. All right, we watched the director's cut.
Yep.
The first thing that I noticed was the opening theme. Now, I want to talk about this just for a second because I did not do research on this, and I wish that I had. Why did it sound like Next Generation? Did Next Generation copy the original motion picture?
They took a lot of it, yeah.
Wow, did not know that.
It is slightly different. If you go listen to the Next Generation theme, there are some minor differences, but it's very much taken from the motion picture, yes.
Did not know that. We kind of always just kind of made that the TNG theme song, but it was the motion picture. They pretty much duplicated or remade the original motion picture, which I have to give a phenomenal kudos to that score composer, because that is one of the most recognizable scores, one of the most recognizable themes in all of Star Trek, and we attribute that to TNG, not motion picture, which is absolutely wild.
Well, so it was in front of one movie, or it was in front of 170 some odd episodes?
Yeah, I guess so. It's kind of crazy.
So, you heard it every week for 7 years, right? In front of, 22 to 24 episodes a year, or one motion picture. So obviously you're going to associate it with the TV show.
Well, that's fair. The score was done very, very well. I'm trying to find. I should have done this before I loaded up, as far as like directors and score and musicians and all this stuff. I would have liked to have had that, but it was very, very good. That was the first thing that surprised me. Let me just say before we start, you said that I was going to watch this movie and that we would have only 5 minutes to talk about it, that there would be nothing else to talk about. We watched it yesterday in the Discord, Bubba Joe.
No.
Yes.
I did not say that we'd only have 5 minutes. I said I did not think we could fill an entire show, an entire episode of the podcast just talking about the motion picture.
Well, I'm here to tell you, I took so many notes. All right. As a matter of fact, I showed Bubba right before the show, and he shook his head. I have 6 pages of notes written, like typed out, single space, size 12 font. All right. Did all the stuff. 6 pages. 6 pages. All right. Jerry Goldsmith was the composer. He changed cinema writing, says Duder. It was in a phenomenal score. So that was the first thing that I noticed, was just, wow, this is very recognizable. And 15 years ahead of its time. When Star Trek Next Generation came out was 1987, if I'm not mistaken, Bubba Joe. And obviously we're going to be spending a lot of time, season 1. We'll be spending a lot of time fact-checking each other. I told Bubba Joe that I was going to make sure that he was wrong on at least multiple occasions today. But, yes, September 28th, 1987 is when TNG came out. So this is 8 years later, and obviously a few movies later, but the Next Generation theme song being taken directly from the motion picture. So we start out, and the way that we're going to do this, how many of you guys, one's in chat, to a buddy of mine, and I like him. We've talked once or twice. I don't know if he actually remembers me. That would be Garrett Wong. You guys know that name? You guys know Garrett? Yeah, he does a podcast called The Delta Flyers, some tiny little show. They do walkthroughs, all right? Yeah, to Pip Kim. They do walkthroughs on their episodes. Now, obviously, that's not something that we're going to be doing for TV episodes. But here for the movies, I thought that we would do something very, very similar, Bubba Joe. I just kind of want to walk it through and add some notes and some interpretation, because I'll tell you, when I started watching through this, you know what? I'm really glad you told me to. I'm really, really glad you made me do it, because when I was watching it, paying attention to details, paying attention to little nuances, looking at things on the screen, writing all my notes. Tarpy says I took more notes than some of your students did all semester. I took a lot of notes. I took it very seriously, and I did some Google research, and I've got some talking point questions for Bubba Joe, but I watched it in a different way, Bubba. When I watched this film, now granted, it's probably been a decade since I did watch it last, okay? But watching it yesterday was different for me. Either last time I was watching it, I was just kind of watching it through. I didn't study it. I didn't pay attention to the details. I wasn't thinking about it. Watching it this time, we watched it yesterday in the Discord. It was a Saturday movie day. I watched it in a new light. I actually observed new things that I had never realized about this movie before. And I feel, just on the surface, and we'll talk about this as we go through it, that the writing was deeper than I had originally thought. Everybody gives this movie a lot of grief, Bubba. You said there's not a lot to talk about. There's no good dialogue. The story has holes in it. And I'll give you a chance to kind of open up and summarize before we start into the details of it. But I felt like this movie was a lot deeper this time when I watched it through. Like, you had to pay attention to some of the subtle nuance or you were going to miss some of it.
Okay, I'll let you make your case.
You disagree completely.
I completely disagree.
Okay, fair enough. I did do my homework, Vic. I did do my homework.
I am willing to state, unless you can convince me today otherwise, that it is stunning that this spawned a second movie, much less 5 additional movies of this universe, right? And it just does not, like, if you look at like sci-fi movies in the 70s, right? That was really when they were trying to really get their feet, or whether it was a sci-fi or a thriller, but the summer movie. And you have things like Jaws in the 70s, you have Star Wars, you have E.T. in the early 80s, and you have these movies. But the thing that a lot of these movies had is they were either so over the top iconic, right? The giant shark, or the alien that moves and acts kind of lifelike, and but is clearly alien and not humanoid, like most of what we see in Star Trek. And you have these movies that, like, they deliver on scripts and moments, and there just aren't any of those in this movie.
See, I don't know. I mean, when was the last time you actually watched this movie? Let me ask you that first. When was the last time you watched it through?
About a month ago.
Okay, so about a month ago, and you were just watching it for pleasure? Were you taking notes? Was this in preparation for the show?
It was in preparation for the show.
Okay. All right. Well, I am going to make my case. All right. I am going to make my case with you, because I felt like there were a lot of subtle nuances here. I do think, by the standards of which we watch movies today, Bubba, obviously the show is dated. Okay. Some of the graphics are dated, but they hit some of the graphics, even if some of it was long drawn and stretched out, which I made some notes. So let's begin at the very beginning. The opening scene, we opened to 3 Klingon cruisers. All right. The first thing that I notice about this, Bubba Joe, as the camera work is going, is almost an identical kind of shot to the opening of Star Wars. Okay. You've got the ship that is flying. They do the camera flip upside down. But what I noticed was the modeling on the ship. This was not what you typically see in today's Star Trek, for example. The modeling on the ship was super detailed. Very, I don't want to say plastic looking, but you could tell that it was a model, right? And they had a lot of lines. There was a lot of drawing. There was a lot of intricate detail on the models of those Klingon cruisers. The upside down shot on the bow of the first Klingon cruiser had a very Star Wars feel to it. The detail, the texture on the ship, and it even had, like, the ball. At the front of a Klingon ship, you've got that sphere that's at the front of the nose of the neck, if you will, of the Klingon battlecruiser. And I felt like that had a very Star Wars kind of feel to it. Like in Star Wars, one of the big Imperial cruisers has that big ball, right? And I felt like they were very, very...
No.
Yes, it has a ball. It's got a big sphere. All right. Anyway, I felt like the modeling on that ship was very, very familiar. When you were looking at that opening scene, you were looking at the modeling. This was back in the day before there was any CGI. They weren't doing any of that stuff. They built the ship, right? They actually built it out of like plastic and model.
That's what was done in the 70s.
Yeah, yes. They built it. And I just felt like the way that these ships were filmed was better than what we saw 10 years prior in the original series. And it was very, very reminiscent of what they had done in the original Star Wars movie as well.
Well, so that's a fair comparison, right? That you liked the fact that they put some extra details in their models, and that's all they could do, right? In the 70s, that's what they did, is they built these models, they detailed them, they painted them, and then they used camera work to move the cameras over the models, which is different than was done previously, where they were trying to move the models through the camera, right? This was a big deal that happened. I want to say it happened first with Star Wars, but it may have predated that a little bit. But the idea that you could move the camera, right? Used to be cameras were massive, you couldn't move them at all. Move the camera over these detailed models to get these shots that are impressive. Yeah, that's kind of cool. And the fact that we get to see a little bit of additional detail that you couldn't really see in the original series, that's fine with me. I don't have a problem with that. And a motion picture gives you the budget and timeline to do something like that.
Well, the ships definitely had more detail to it. And you guys are saying in the chat that a lot of it was influenced by 2001 Space Odyssey. Star Wars had come out 2 years prior. So, and that probably also, you had mentioned that that you were surprised that Star Trek was able to continue its momentum. It probably had a lot to do with George Lucas. Truthfully, we can speculate on that a little bit later, but Star Wars came out in 77, then you had Star Trek in 79. You had some of the sci-fi series kind of popping up and being successful then. So we'll talk more about that a little bit later. And obviously, as it relates to Star Trek Fleet Command, our next movie that we'll be talking about here in just a few weeks will be The Wrath of Khan, as we get ready to wrap up the Wrath of Khan arc at the end of May. So it's good timing. I like how we're doing this. But so anyway, we've got this exterior shot. All right. Then we go to the inside of the Klingon bridge. First thing I noticed, Bubba Joe, is how tiny it is. I listened to an interview with Sonequa Martin Green, who had talked about the Bridge of Discovery and how large it was. And then you look at the Bridge of Enterprise in Strange New Worlds. They are large. We have kind of forgotten the scale of the set a little bit. Even if you go back to TNG, the Bridge of the Enterprise D was a pretty good-sized bridge. But these bridges here in the original series, this Klingon ship, and then I noticed it later again in the Enterprise, very tight, very constrained. You looked at this Klingon bridge, and it was very, very small. You had the captain's chair there.
Big one right there. That's impressively
large. It wasn't large, Lawson. Thank you for your gifted subs, by the way. Thank you so very much. Lawson dropping some gifted subs into the chat. You saw the captain's chair. Didn't even have like a commander's chair or first officer's chair. They had 2 stations on that Klingon bridge, and then 2 stations behind. So there were only 5 Klingons on that bridge. It was very, very small. And then they looked at the view screen. And this was another thing that I noticed, Bubba Joe. The view screen was so teeny tiny. Like, you had this bridge, which was small, but then you had what looked like a 12-inch monitor. It was like looking at an iPhone S screen, just like stuck up there to the wall. It was so small. And I'm thinking to myself, how are you going to see anything outside? How are you going to see anything outside? These new ships, like some of the new shows, they've got these big, massive screens. Look at Strange New Worlds. Captain Pike can walk up to a screen. It's literally the size of 2 of him in height, and like the whole width of the bridge you can see outside. These, back in the day, Bubba Joe, these view screens, very, very small.
Okay. I mean, that was normal.
You're not giving me...
That was technology. I don't understand why you're shocked by this. Like, you're like, this is a huge deal because in next gen they have these giant screens. Yeah, because this was made in the 70s.
I'm pointing out some of these things that I noticed about how Star Trek has kind of changed a little bit, Bubba. I mean, when we go through this walkthrough, there's a lot that was just different. If we look at Star Trek from 50 years ago, a lot of it holds up, but and a lot of it obviously is the basis for everything we see today. But I thought it was an observation. Gosh, Bubba.
All right, go ahead.
It was like, it's like the Ford Fiesta of spaceships. I know. It's almost like they had a budget.
So a couple of things. So that design for the Klingon bridge actually carries forward, right? If you look at some of the other Klingon bridges in Next Generation and Deep Space Nine, they are very similar to what we see in the motion picture, right? They have not evolved it much. Which probably there's some, you know, the Klingons don't care about the niceties of their bridge,
Sure.
right? They don't care about having space. Everything to Klingons is about how much more firepower, how many more shields can I put in, and more firepower, and then some more firepower, right? So they were more concerned about torpedo improvements and phaser improvements and recharge rate than they ever were about, can we give people more room, right?
Sure.
So it's a cultural difference between the way Federation designs things and the way that the Klingons design things. However, having said that, if you go look at any sci-fi from the 70s, like, it's all tiny monitors because that was the reality of the 70s. If you go talk to people that grew up and were, you know, teenagers in the 60s when TVs were really, really kind of new, being that people could actually get their hands on them, they were tiny things. This is just the reality of trying to make something, right? Just like they took a lot of the models from 2001: A Space Odyssey and other models and then combined them together into these ships, because there wasn't a Klingon model that they could build or a Federation model. They had to take other model pieces and build them and combine them in ways that made a starship that they wanted to use for their universe. Similarly to that, like, the TVs were just a reality. If you were going to have something that was going to display something to you, it was going to be small because that was the only technology they had to do it. Now, could they have a bigger view screen that they could say, oh, we'll say that there's something projected on there? Sure, but that just wasn't the reality of what was going on at the time.
Lost In, thank you so very much for dropping $100 into the tip jar. Appreciate that. And you, too, will have an opportunity to earn free cruise entries coming up a little bit later in the show. Speaking of Star Trek here, we are giving away a cabin on Star Trek The Cruise. More information will be available a little bit later in the show. You can get details on our website at talkingtrekstfc.com or ultimatedjsplays.com. Lost In, thank you. You're a legend. Appreciate you. You know, it's interesting that you mentioned that, Bubba, because that, I can tell you right now, that is a failure of mine when thinking about this, when watching this, was comparing to technology at the time, right? Like, I'm reminded of watching Back to the Future, where they talk about some of the technology in the video phones, and I see Omicron saying that, or Shiz saying that anything with a really large screen, like, they didn't have just unlimited resolution and pixels and all that stuff. You had, the bigger the screen, the lower the resolution was. It was basically just the same, the diodes and everything. So using larger screens might not have always been the best selection when doing some of this stuff. And really, truthfully, if at the time a normal television was 12 inches, or 14 inches or 20 inches. Having these big screens on the bridge of a Klingon ship, or even that of the Enterprise, was probably very advanced at that time. So I noticed that a little bit later, too, also on the bridge of the Enterprise. He actually called for different graphical views a lot. Forward viewer, rear viewer, and we saw a lot of that, how he was wanting to use that view screen to look at things, which we don't hear today. In today's Trek, we don't see a lot of that because we can just see everything. It's a 360-degree stage. But we saw a lot of Kirk directing what he wanted to actually look at. So we are still on this opening scene. The Klingon ships are there. We see this phenomenon, all right? A blue ring of sorts. The Klingons, straight up, they just go and fire on it. There's nothing there other than just what we know about the Klingons, Bubba Joe, that indicates why they would want to fire on it. There's no attempts at communication. There's no nothing. They just roll up on this thing and they want to blow it up. So probably about on par. They fire 3 torpedoes. The first one disappears, then the second, then the third. They just disappear, completely vanish off the radar. The Klingons signal retreat. Now, I thought this was actually kind of a big thing. We don't see the Klingons signal retreat very often. Okay, they really don't. They'll at least battle. They'll at least kind of fight a little bit. These guys shot 3 torpedoes. They disappeared. They're like, hell no. We're getting out of here, okay? We flip the scenes to what appears to be then a Federation communication satellite, all right, which, by the way, they look very different today than what they looked at back in 79. But the Klingon signal retreat, they are communicating with each other. These communications, Bubba, are being picked up by this big, massive Federation communication satellite. What I thought was interesting about this scene was there was a view. Okay? Now, this made me laugh a little bit about logistics. Don't know. When we saw the weapon being fired from the entity, from the blue cloud, it hit the Klingon ship, and of course we saw the effects, right? The ball that hit, the lightning, it kind of took over the ship, and then it just disappeared, Bubba Joe. Okay? It was just gone. Interestingly, the satellite was able to get video imagery from directly on the nose of that Klingon ship. And I noticed this a little bit later when Kirk is presenting to the crew of the Enterprise, which we'll bring up here in just a little bit. But that actually made me ask the question, Bubba Joe, where are they getting these camera angles from? Where did they get the visual from that? This outpost is floating around somewhere, this communications array, but somehow they had video from directly on the nose of that Klingon battlecruiser. Obviously, this is going to be a plot hole for me, but I had to laugh, Bubba, because the camera views that they had were very, very interesting. Later, when Kirk sees this video again, not only do we see it from the front, but then we also got to flip and see it from the side. I thought that was a little bit quirky to me, Bubba Joe. Obviously just movie stuff, I guess, but quirky.
But so the Klingons, they tried their attack. I don't know if they were withdrawing, but they were definitely repositioning. And when they are fired upon, they then are like, oh, this thing. Now, again, the other thing to think about is that the blue torpedo, the lightning little thing from the cloud, is like the size of their ship. Okay,
yeah, not small.
So it's not like their little torpedoes are firing from their ship and the cloud is basically laughing it off, right? The thing it fires back is like the size of the Klingon's ship, right? If I see that coming at me, I'm sending out distress signals. I'm taking any sensor data I have and I'm transmitting it, right? Hopefully this will help the Klingon fleet, which is what they're probably trying to do, is let's get the Klingon fleet out here and let's actually, send enough ships to do something about this. And so they are transmitting all of their sensor data. Now, they're not transmitting it for the Federation. They're just transmitting it.
Sure, yeah.
And the Federation is intercepting it.
We intercepted it, yeah. So, but again, it's not necessarily about
I am so positive.
The transmission itself.
I'm full of positive energy.
I don't know. For me, it was the camera. The camera angles.
Well, you just talked about how the Enterprise is like front viewer, back viewer, port viewer.
I know this whole thing messed me up. Like, where are they getting these views from? Where are the cameras? Where are the cameras? Listen, on your truck today.
About how the Enterprise talks about how they use the different views, right? You're telling me the Klingons wouldn't have similar views to be able to figure out where the enemy is to be able to shoot them?
Yes, but we're talking about a third-party view. That's what I was talking about. The third-party view.
This is not so.
That shot back on the Klingon ship.
The Klingons know they're in trouble. They want to send. I'm gonna cough again. Hang on a second.
Mute it. There we go. See, I hit the button that time. Go ahead, get her all out, baby. Okay.
Klingons know they're in trouble. They are sending all of their sensor data, all of the camera views, all of the sensor data, and they're transmitting it. They're hoping it gets to the Klingons. Okay. So they're sending their left view, right view, front view, back view, toilet view. They're sending all of their views as far as they can go. Okay.
So you're saying I'm thinking about this too. I'm thinking about this too analytically.
Great view. It's like they're just sending whatever view they had.
And then, like our cars today, 360-degree cameras, it basically just reconstructed everything. Is that how we're going with it? Is that how I'm justifying the camera angle? Okay.
To me, that makes sense, especially, in today's technology, right? You have lots of little cameras that are looking at different things. But I think that, the
Yes,
Klingons
Amber,
are like, okay,
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. The nose view of the head ship was still the issue. I get it. All right, let the movie be a movie, and I understand. I'm just saying it was something that I observed that irked me a little bit. Anyway, we come back to the entity. Okay, we come back to the entity. It vanishes. It disappears. The Klingon ship absorbs it. We only ever found out that what was being shot out of that entity was a plasma energy. All right. That was what Spock described it as later. However, the Enterprise was hit with that weapon and did not evaporate like the Klingons did. I have a theory on this, Bubba, and we're jumping forward a little bit, but I don't think
you're jumping forward a lot.
I don't think that the ship was destroyed. All right, I'm just going to put this feather cap. I'm just going to put this in my cap for a second, stick a pin in it. We're going to come back to this a little bit later. I don't think the Klingon ship was destroyed. I don't think it was. All right.
I think we know that.
No, I don't think we do. Put a pin in it. We're going to come back to it. Okay? I mean, that's not what the plasma weapon did. That's right, Shiz. They were scanned.
So I was pretty sure
they were scanned.
I'm pretty sure that when Spock enters the entity, and we're like now jumping at about 90 minutes.
Yeah.
That he sees a portion of the station.
Yes. He sees Epsilon 9. He sees planets. That's right. These were scanned in. I don't think it was
obviously. So
yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't just a weapon. They weren't firing with destructive intentions.
So someone's ability to make something disappear can easily be interpreted as a weapon. You would call it a weapon. This weapon destroyed their ship because their ship is no longer there.
Fair. I can get behind that. I'm just saying, like, it wasn't like a torpedo that just comes and blows up a ship. There was something else. That was certainly interpreted that way, but I was thinking that's right. Like Shiz says, I think it was just scanned, digitized, added to V'ger's database. We're going to talk more about that a little bit later. Then I enjoyed this. Now, I have a question for you, Bubba Joe. Is it soundtrack, or was it the actual sound of the entity, that big bong? That sound. Every single time we saw the cloud, every time we saw the weapon, we heard, you guys know what I'm talking about. Boom. You guys know that? Was that just the dramatic sound effect of the movie that something terrible had just happened? Or was that the sound of the entity? I'm just curious. I just want to know what you think.
Well, considering there's no sound in space,
Bubba!
I believe it's an effect to draw attention to.
Don't be using that kind of logic right now when we're talking about V'ger 6, all right, coming from the freaking Gamma Quadrant, okay?
So this is a movie technique, right? To say, I want to draw your attention to this. It's, they use it in movies. I want to draw your attention to this person might be evil, so the musical tones are going to appear evil.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're going to turn and become something that. So it's the same thing here. It's a gimmick that movie makers use.
Well, I loved it. All right, I loved the fact that it was so well timed and was used for multiple times whenever this entity showed up, whenever the cloud showed up. And that's right, Watinsky. There was actual atmosphere in V'ger. Just saying, throwing that out there. But V'ger created it. We're going to talk about that coming up in a little bit as well. But anyway, I just thought it was something kind of interesting. Fisty says that was actually on the soundtrack. They invented an instrument for that. Ooh, I would love to know more about that. Victor says it's called a motif. All right, fair enough. But I thought it was very interesting because every time we saw that entity, we had that big bong. Anyway, we also learn right here and now that the cloud is on a course. All right. Do we know where it's headed? Do we know if it's going to Earth? Not yet. Just scan the Klingons and life goes on. We're going to cut to Vulcan now. Spock is there studying the Kolinahr. Now,
why? Hang on. You made a note that it's on a course, and we don't know to where.
We don't know where. I wrote
things in space are not on courses normally.
I wrote a question: is the cloud headed for Earth? All right, that was my question because I didn't know where it was going. See, again, listen. When I watched this movie, I watched it from a beginner's perspective. I don't remember diddly squat about this. Now, Enterprise says they did say it was on a direct course for Earth, not the Klingons. Not the Klingons didn't. Kirk realized later, Starfleet realized it was on a direct course to Earth, which we learned when we got on the Enterprise, but we're skipping ahead. But right there in the Klingon scene, we didn't know that. Now, we're going to cut to Vulcan, where Spock is studying the Kolinar. He's got all long, shaggy hair. He's in his robes. I have a question, Bubba Joe. All right?
Fire away.
Obviously, we know that this was 10 years after the completion of the original series. All right? I have never, admittedly, watched the animated series. Does the animated series give closure to the original series? Because we saw this cast. No. They were all over the place. Why did Spock leave Starfleet? Why was Spock studying the Kolinar? Was it just like the next... Why was he there? Why was he not with Kirk?
Well, Spock has always wanted to purge his human emotions. Like that was carried through the show. Like that was always something that was talked about. And whether it was talked about, briefly here or there, I mean, to find that that's where he wants to be makes complete sense.
Okay, so we find that Spock is back on Vulcan. He's studying the Kolinar. Now, he's getting ready to graduate, if you will. He's getting ready to achieve Kolinar, all right? And he's getting ready to go through this procedure. And then we hear, Bubba Joe, the bong again, which is why I wanted to know, is it just a soundtrack kind of thing, or was it the sound of the entity? Because we hear the bong again, all the way on Vulcan. Spock's the only one who can hear it. Okay? Nobody hears it.
Spock is attuned with the Force.
He's got the Force. Got you. The V'ger was speaking to Spock. Nobody else could see it. Nobody else could hear it.
He's not speaking to Spock. Spock senses a disturbance in the Force.
But nobody else did? Nobody?
You see any other Jedi in Star Trek?
Oh, see, this was a little bit of an issue for me right here. All right, this was a little bit of an issue. Here we've got Vulcan masters of the Kolinar, and they can't sense the disturbance in the Force, Bubba Joe?
But Vulcans, so let's just, I'll call it a sixth sense, call it a perception of the universe that Spock has over other people. Vulcans are very self-centered. They care about Vulcan and nothing else. The only reason they ever go anywhere is to see if anybody can tell them something else that would be useful, and then they want to never talk to them again. Okay? The Vulcans, like, even if there were other people that were also attuned to the universe, like Spock seems to be, like, they don't care. They want to know about Vulcan. Okay. This is potentially a cataclysmic event happening to the universe, right? This entity, this massive entity, which we'll talk about later, how that.
It was only 100,000 light years cubed. Oh, Scopely. Anyway,
so it is this. Sorry, this is just Kirk. Kirk. This is just Spock having a sense that is a supernatural sense. I use the Force sarcastically because it's May the 4th, but it could be any sense, right? Just an attunement to the universe.
Ace says, you know what? Knowing what we know now, I'd be pretty attuned to the universe, too, if my foster sister was sent into the future to save us all from an evil AI. It's possible. Absolutely. Do we know? Yeah, no, we do know, don't we? Yeah, this all happened before. So the motion picture happened after the events of Discovery. Yeah, I guess so. Interesting. So anyway, Spock is getting ready to graduate.
The original series happens after Discovery.
Yeah, that's right, because you got Pike on the Enterprise. So, all right, we're getting ready to graduate the Kolinar, okay? He's getting ready to get his cool red necklace, And then he's like, hold up a second, just wait. All the studying, everything that he did, all right? And he doesn't just take the necklace and graduate and go on. He was like, hold it, wait, talk to the hand, chief priestess. Because he hears the bong. He hears the bong, and he holds up his hand, and he says, wait. All right? Then, for a moment, Bubba Joe, I thought that the priestess heard the bong too. But she didn't. She didn't hear the bong. She didn't hear the bong. She just said, Spock, you have not achieved Kolinar. Your future is among the stars. There are questions we cannot answer. Logic is not your answer.
If this was a Mel Brooks movie, she may have heard the bong. But since this is not, she did not.
She did not hear a bong. All right, so they deny him Kolinar. They drop the necklace. He picks it up. He looks at it longingly, and then he stares off into space. Did he get to keep his necklace? Does that something that he gets to keep and maybe put on later? Or did he just boom, done? He's done with Kolinar. Like he's been kicked out.
I think he's been kicked out.
You're done. Goodbye, Spock. Goodbye. All right. You got to go to space. All right. We're going to cut to San Francisco. All right. Starfleet headquarters. We're going to cut to San Francisco where I noticed, Bubba Joe, and again, don't judge me. This is me judging it from a 50-year lens. Those little shuttles were really loud, man. They were like little 4-banger engines. Did you guys hear? They didn't sound smooth and sci-fi like they do in today's movies. They sounded like a lawnmower engine. Anybody else notice that? These shuttles were just like putting along. I mean, they were like little lawnmower engines, like a chainsaw sound. Nobody.
I did not hear that at all.
I heard it, man. Those shuttles were loud. All right, I was like, damn. All right, that's like the Ford Fiesta of shuttles.
Are you sure your kids were not playing with chainsaws?
No, there was no chainsaws.
Because I'm listening to the scene right now, and I don't hear chainsaws.
Yeah, BD's was like, no, that was an actual lawnmower. That was what they used. So the shuttle lands. Out comes Kirk. He speaks to a science officer. I missed his name, Bubba Joe. I missed his name. Kirk has got this science officer under the command of Captain Decker. Now, I'm going to admit here for a second, I did no research on this. I'm very, very, thank you, Commander Sonak. Thank you. I am very confused about Captain Decker. All right. So he talks to the science officer. He says, hey, we're leaving early. Report to the Enterprise, blah, blah, blah. We're leaving in an hour. And he mentions Captain Decker. Now, we know that this can't be the Decker, Commodore Decker, from the Doomsday episode. Is there any relation between these Deckers, Bubba Joe? Is this his son? Is this just a totally different person? Because it felt like there was some familiarity between Kirk and Decker. Father and son.
I have no idea. People in the chat are saying they're father and son. I actually have no idea.
I wondered. I was going to do some Googling on it, and I forgot. I did not check that one because I forgot to highlight this one in yellow. Fisty says it's actually covered in the novelization of this. Captain Decker is Commodore Decker's son. All right. Now, Fisty says it's not canon, and that's true. In this movie, we never got confirmation that Captain Decker was Commodore Decker's son, but there was definitely some familiarity. Fast forwarding a couple of scenes, when Kirk speaks to Decker, we're going to talk about that a little bit, but there was definitely a history between these two. All right. And it doesn't look like that history was all peachy keen, which would lend itself to the idea that maybe Decker blamed Kirk for what happened to Commodore Decker. We'll talk more about that later.
I didn't get that at all. Okay, we'll get to that, but I didn't get that at all. I think that Decker was just hesitant to take this command because he was afraid Kirk would come after it, and then was proven to be correct.
Yeah, but
I think that's all it is.
Kirk recommended him. Like, he was part of his training. He said, after all this time you spent on me, investing in me, you recommended me for this command. Now you're just going to take it away. I felt like there was a personal history there.
I mean, as far as I can tell, this is really just an up-and-coming officer in Starfleet who wants his command, gets this recommendation from Kirk, but is concerned that Kirk is going to do exactly what
he ended up doing. Yeah, Kirk's ego, says Omicron. So maybe so. We'll talk about that, get to that scene here in just a little bit. Again, we're going to now Space Dock, all right? We're cutting from San Francisco. We're cutting up to Space Dock. Actually, a space station. It wasn't the dock. They were separated. The space station is kind of what we traditionally look at now with kind of like the jellyfish kind of shape. But Space Dock was off away. So we get up to the space station. Actually, again, I could definitely tell that there was more. Again, kind of going back to what I talked about with the Klingon ships, Bubba Joe, I enjoyed the intricacy of the modeling of the starbase. It was actually really, really good. I enjoyed that. Again, just the attention to detail, the lighting, and all this stuff. It was very, very cool. But we don't need to talk about that again. I noticed that. I made a creative note about the fact that the starbase model also is just very, very, very good.
The models in the movie were fine. Like, they were good. They were exactly what I would expect of the movie of the time.
Yeah. See, Bubba Joe said the movie was good. Did you hear that? So
it's not what I said.
There's Scotty. All right. We're inside. We see the transporters and all this stuff. There's Scotty. He's complaining about the 12-hour launch. They board a pod. Okay. So he transported to the starbase. Now, I thought this was kind of interesting, Bubba Joe. Kirk transports to the starbase where he meets Scotty, but then instead of transporting to the Enterprise, they just hop in a shuttle. All right. Because they have to do their 20-minute flyby. This was our first 20 minutes. This was the first 20-minute sequence in the movie that had absolutely no dialogue. I even went into the chat. I joked. I was like, okay, Bubba says take a shot. All right. They board a pod. They depart from the space station, head to the Enterprise. Kirk and Spock have a moment. Kirk tells him about the impending doom. He tells him that this thing, now we learn that this entity is on a direct course to Earth. Now is when we learn that this thing is coming straight for Earth. Okay?
So can we talk about this sequence for just a second?
Sure.
All right. So why are they doing a 360? It's not like Kirk hasn't seen the ship before.
Hang on. I don't want to get to that part. Well, okay, that's fine. Why are they doing a 360? Because it was a little long, okay? Admittedly, a little long, but this leads to the most, as Alpha Zypher writes, leads to the most beautiful ship reveal in the sci-fi universe. And, by the way, Alpha, not one that is not repeated multiple times, okay? This is what I wrote. This is one of Bubba's pauses in dialogue. The flyby was a nice, long, along the driver's side. Then they did a U-turn, and they came back underneath and over top. It was still flying, still flying, still flying. I took 2 shots, 60-second shot on the aft of the shuttle docking in. I mean, it was a very, very long sequence. However, all right, this was a precedent-setting sequence. All right? It had never happened before, as Alpha Zypher points out. This type of flyby has been used for every ship reveal in every property, Bubba Joe, in every series since then. Not 20 minutes, admittedly, but this space dock flyby, the music. Again, I'm not saying that it wasn't long, but this was a very emotional scene. And 50 years ago, movie making was a little different. I'm going to point out one observation, Bubba, and then I would like your reaction on this, because even though it was long, okay, I get it. Even though it was a long sequence, it was still awesome. All right. And one thing that I noticed about manufacturing of entertainment then and now, I do Studio B on Saturday nights. Last night was a lot of fun. Check it out on Patreon. Oh, by the way, it was Beck's birthday yesterday, so I put it up for free to celebrate Beck's birthday. Everybody gets a birthday gift. If you go to our website, talkingtrekstfc.com, and click on Patreon, you will get free completely free access to the entire show, the audio and the video version in honor of Beck's birthday. It was a lot of fun last night. It was amazing. So there is Beck's gift to everybody. All right. The entire Studio B show is free to everybody. All right. Go check that out. Anyway, Bubba, one thing that I notice, if I'm looking at remixes today, music, remixes today, songs today, they are significantly shorter than what they used to be. I have one of my favorite mixes of a Michael Jackson song from the 80s, okay? This was, I don't remember the DJ that made it. I'll have to go back and check, but it is 12 minutes long, Bubba Joe. They just did things longer. Things just, I don't know if it was the technology or if that was the style. I don't know if that was what people wanted. They had more attention span. Today's attention span in entertainment is very, very fleeting. All right. Yeah, just how fast everything is. But I've got remixes from the 80s, Bubba, that are minimum 10 minutes long. Is it possible that this scene, despite its length, is only long by today's standards? And at that time, because we had a couple of these throughout the movie, at that time, this was just an awe-inspiring, incredibly motivating sequence of shots.
So I don't have a problem with a movie having a long shot. Okay. I don't have a problem with a movie doing that. If there is a reason to have a long, epic shot of, coming in to see the landscape and then come around, you can do long shots in cinema, right? There's nothing wrong with long shots in cinema. The purpose of this, what is happening on screen right now, is to transport Kirk from the station to the ship as quickly as possible so he can go talk to Decker.
Because they got to leave in 12 hours.
We're doing a 360 and a 360 again, and we're going to go now. We're going to back into our spot. I'm surprised there wasn't a beep, 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 beep as they're trying to back into their spot.
I noticed that. Okay. For us to be in such a time crunch.
This is the problem. The purpose of going on this shuttle was to get there because the transporters weren't working. And they're like, well, let's joyride around the Enterprise a little bit because that'll be cool.
I did notice that. That was very, very funny because everything up to this point, they were in a hurry. They were trying to get gone in 12 hours. All right. And then Scotty just takes him on a half hour.
We're trying to leave in 12 hours. Scotty's got to be on the ship. He's got all these things he's got to do. Let's joyride around the ship a couple of times.
That's right. Chop it up. All right, we got to go. I thought that was kind of a funny thing in the story part of it, Bubba. But step over to the movie making piece of it. Okay, the movie making piece of this. Do you really think that sequence was bad? Because I was riveted. I was looking at all the detail. I was looking at all the modeling.
So if we go from the V'ger, okay, we don't know its name right now, but the entity. We go from the entity to this shot of the Enterprise being refit, and they want to go do a 360 of just we're here in a space dock. We're looking at the Enterprise. We're taking a look at what's going on. Okay, like cinematically, that's fine. But this sequence is supposed to be about a shuttle going from point A to point B as quickly as humanly possible because they now have an accelerated timeline to leave. And they decide to do a joyride around the ship a couple of times.
Well, Kirk does care deeply about his Enterprise. And as Medic points out in the chat, listen, Enterprise has just been refit, which is a huge deal even in today's military services, in today's Navy. Admiral Kirk could have been surveying the ship before taking it over and taking the ship into battle. We also know...
because there were a lot of external modifications to the ship.
It was his baby. Okay?
They're all internal. All the refits are internal. Okay? If he needs to go see the refits, he needs to be inside the ship.
No. There is something to be said about looking at your brand new Camaro, dude, and just looking at how freaking sexy it is. Okay? I mean, Hypodermic says, all right, guys, to be fair, they had 12 hours. Was 20 minutes that big of a deal? You know what? I'm going to go with that. All right, listen, if I know I need to go somewhere in 12 hours, I will probably take 20 minutes for, for a comfort thing or something. Trickle says, aren't you a Ford guy? Yeah, but I mean, dude, Camaros are just hot, right? Aren't they? I mean, Mustangs are great, but I drove a Camaro the other day. It was so nice.
All right. So
anyway, okay.
This is my problem with the scene. You can have the cinematic scene of showing all the cool details of the Enterprise. You can do that.
You can't do it at the end of the
Kirk's
movie,
on a
bro.
Timeline. They just talked about, we have a timeline. I got to get moving as fast as possible. Let's joyride around the ship a couple of times.
I can't believe you couldn't last 2 more minutes.
Oh, come on. Kirk just wanted to look at his lady of the night, all right? But all joking aside, whatever you want to talk about with this sequence, it was very long. All right. I think that was entertainment at the time, Bubba Joe. There's many, many examples of how stuff just was longer back in the day. But I agree, narratively, it didn't fit either. But it was definitely beautiful. And did they ever?
Not denying it's beautiful.
Did they ever do anything like that in the show, though?
What I'm saying.
Did they ever do that in the show? I don't think they did. Right? Never. There was never that kind of a flyby. There was never that kind of a reveal in the show. This was the first time that ever happened. And it was inspirational, and it was so motivating and so awe-inspiring that they've done it for every ship since then, Bubba Joe. Every
not done
one.
It for every ship. No, they have not. We did not see Next Generation in Space Dock until it was being retrofitted. The Enterprise D. We never saw Defiant in Space Dock.
Yeah, Defiant, probably not. Okay, maybe not every one. All right, but a lot of them, dude. This was.
Did we see Voyager in Space Dock?
Yes. Yes, we did see Voyager in Space Dock.
Well, I've blocked out most of Voyager, so you could be right there.
Are you kidding me? All right. Anyway, that's right. They did it on the Orville too. All right.
But let's talk about why. Okay. So again, let's talk about why. Why was this not done on the original series, and why is it done here? Do you have an answer for that? Because I do.
Because it was a movie.
No. Because the technology had changed. The movie making technology had changed.
Well, for sure. Yeah. They
changed it. So this is something that was, and I'm pretty sure someone confirmed in the chat. If I am wrong, you can go ahead and tell me I'm wrong. But I'm pretty sure that Industrial Light and Magic developed this technology where the cameras were able to be moved around the models. Right? That was not something they could do in the 60s.
That's right.
That technology did not exist.
Yeah.
The cameras were fixed, and you had to move the models around the cameras. This is a new technology, and of course they want to use it because it allows them to show off the detail and care that they put in their models, which is fine. I don't have a problem with a long shot. I have a problem with this long shot.
Yeah. Well, there's more, so we'll talk about those as we come along, because I felt like there was at least one or two more in this. So Kirk. We cut. He's in the turbo lift heading to the bridge, okay? He looks a little bit concerned. He leaves Scotty. Scotty heads to engineering, and he is getting onto the turbo lift and heading to the bridge. He looks a little bit concerned. He exits the turbo lift onto the bridge, which is chaos, all right? Absolute chaos. You see probably 30 bodies, and again, we already talked about how small this stage was, all right? You had people on step ladders. You had people up in the ceiling raising things up, and this was all part of the sequence. It wasn't construction. Like, it was construction. They were still retrofitting. It was meant to display how the ship wasn't ready, Bubba Joe. It was meant to display that Enterprise was not ready to fly. You had 30 bodies on the bridge. The ship was not ready to take off. There was dozens of people working just on the bridge. You pan over to Uhura on comms. She's trying to dispatch repair crews and construction crews. We see Sulu. We see Chekhov here in this scene starting to kind of put the crew back together. This is our first glimpse at Uhura, Sulu, and Chekhov. And that was a satisfying moment for me as well, Bubba Joe. I mean, obviously, we all knew when this movie was new, you knew that the cast was going to be there, but this was, I don't know. I felt they could have done more with this moment. All right. I felt like it was a lackluster fan service moment because Kirk comes out, you see 3 of his crew, and he really doesn't respond to them. You know, you don't see that that friendly familiarity. You don't see the emotion or the happiness at the reunion. You see a very cold, concerned, calculating Kirk. And that might be because of the mission orders that he just got, but he doesn't even say hi. Like, he didn't even say. Chekhov was so happy. Chekhov was so great to see him. And then Kirk just walks away. Just walks off. All right. I felt like it was rude. And you could draw your own conclusions from that. I felt like it was rude. All right. I felt like Kirk was rude to his crew. And I wondered if, I mean, he did acknowledge them, but it wasn't nice. You know what I'm saying? I just felt like it was not what I would have expected after a long reunion, a long anticipated reunion. Right? Ace says, now we know why Chekhov moved to the Reliant. He was disrespected. Maybe.
Well, hang on. So there's a point in the chat. I don't think that the people on the bridge knew that Kirk was coming. They knew they were leaving in 12 hours, but I don't think they knew Kirk was coming.
Yes, I can agree with that. All right, I can agree with that.
So obviously, this is a surprise. They were not expecting to be. Everyone in the crew is still expecting to be led by Decker. Okay, everyone is still expecting. We got 12 hours. We got to go. Decker's going to lead us. Right?
I don't know. Chekhov said Decker doesn't know, so Chekhov knew. Chekhov knew. When we were in that scene, he said he was getting ready to go find Decker, and he said, "Captain, Decker doesn't know." All right, that's right. Uhura indicated to Starfleet had just signaled transfer of command.
Said it right then. But before that moment, no one knew.
Yeah, that's probably fair. So why couldn't he just be like, it's great to see you guys. It's been a long time. How are you? Give me a hug. Bring it in. I mean, come on.
Well, because he needs to go tell the person who's going to be most affected by this.
Bubba, if you and I hadn't seen each other for 10 years, even if you came over to replace me as host on this show, you wouldn't give me a hug?
No,
the answer is yes. Okay. The answer is yes. You would give me a hug. I just felt it was very impersonal. I felt it was very impersonal. I don't know.
I'm not your commanding officer.
That's true. Wolfwood says it again, or Medic says it again. This was a military. That's right, Scalyback. This was a military organization.
I got to go see some people who used to work for me like 6 months ago. I didn't give them a hug.
But you were friendly.
Of course I was friendly, but I didn't give him a hug.
All right, fine. So we do this quick greeting, all right, and I was left emotionally unsatisfied by this greeting. We cut out to engineering. Decker is unaware of the change in command. This is now where I start to think this obviously is a different, younger Decker, Captain Decker. Kirk says...
Looks like a preacher, doesn't he?
Looks like a preacher? Yeah, it looks like a young Kirk Cameron. All right. Who was the actor? Who was this guy who actually did this?
I think that someone in the chat knows.
Let's see. Where is Decker? Stephen Collins. Oh, he's the Seventh Heaven guy.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I get it. He's the Seventh Heaven guy. I mean, obviously he's done a lot of stuff, but yeah, Seventh Heaven guy. Okay, so yeah, way before he got himself into trouble. I understand. It's not just, okay, it was him. All right, Stephen Collins. Anyway, he's mad. Now, this is where Will Decker basically kind of has a personal moment. Now, if you want to talk about military, okay, you want to talk about the military, you talk about how there's a military, formality, and you can't be friendly, then why is Will Decker being so personal? You know what? This is what I knew you were always going to do this, you asshole. I knew you were going to come and take my ship. You recommended me for this job. You knew my daddy. You took care of me. And then you come and you steal my ship. I mean, that's what I heard. I heard disrespect abound from Will Decker. All right. Which is why it makes me struggle that Kirk couldn't have been friendly with his other people. All right, because then we come in here and see Will Decker acting like a kindergartner. All right. Anyway,
so hang on. You've watched more original series than I have. Every time I've tried to watch the original series TV show, I end up falling asleep or just getting bored out of my mind. So you've watched more original series than I have. Was he lovey-dovey with his crew? he and Spock and Bones were bros, but did he hang out with the rest of them?
No.
Okay.
But I mean, it was
So
friendly.
you're expecting that he's going to be like, bro, come in for a hug because we never did that before.
I was being exaggerating when I'm talking about the hug. I'm just saying, like, it was.
Bro, give me a high five because we never did that before.
Hey, good to see you, man. Like, that's it. That's all it needed to be. Hey, Chekhov, how you doing? How's the wife and kids? Right? Uhura, how you feeling? You want to kiss me again? I mean, come on. There could have been some stuff there. All right? It was just so impersonal.
Of all the things that happened on the movie, this interaction between Kirk and Decker is the most real thing.
Yeah. Well,
the most real thing.
It gave me a lot of questions. All right. I made notes about this. First of all, who is Decker? What's the history here? If this is Decker from Commodore Decker from the Doomsday episode, then after Commodore Decker sacrifices himself, all right, because that's essentially what happened. All right. After Commodore Decker sacrifices himself for Kirk and the crew of the Enterprise, did Kirk feel indebted to Will Decker? Did Kirk handhold this guy through the academy? Does Decker owe his captaincy? Is that why Decker had the Enterprise? Bubba, there's a lot of subtext here that I feel like we didn't get in this movie. There was a lot of questions right here. Why did Will Decker feel like he could talk to Kirk like he did if it is that much of a military organization? And why was Kirk so bothered by the fact that he had to take this ship back? I mean, he was bothered. He didn't want to tell Decker, or he did, but he felt bad about it.
I don't think he felt bad about it. Not one bit.
I think he was uncomfortable with the exchange.
Nope.
No? So just, hey, yo, bro. Yo.
My ship. I'm taking her back.
My ship. I'm taking her back. All right?
And I think that attitude is exactly why Decker did not want to be put in charge of the Enterprise in the first place. Why he wanted a different ship to be away from Kirk. Now, is it possible that there's some history there? Because there's this potential relationship with it being his dad, which is in books, which is not canon, which is whatever. Fine. There could be something there. But I didn't pick up that at all. I think this was simply an officer, an up-and-coming officer in Starfleet that wants their command, right? Ships don't come around all the time.
Yeah.
And wanted something other than the Enterprise, knowing that Kirk was going to want to take it back as the whatever opportunity that he could have.
So, Ransusi, Kirk was an admiral in this movie, but for this mission, Admiral Nugura, if I'm saying that name right, Admiral Nugura gave him the Enterprise and therefore the field commission of captain. That's how he explained it to Scotty when they were in the shuttle pod, was that he was admiral, but they had granted him captaincy of the Enterprise for this mission. And then, of course, when Kirk is talking to Decker, he said it will come with a temporary field reassignment of commander. All right. He wasn't going to be able to remain captain, obviously. So it came with a temporary field reduction of commander. And that was then Commander Decker who was given the orders. Now, all of a sudden, red alert! Red alert! There's a transporter malfunction. We rush to the transporter room. We cannot abort. People are coming in. We assume here in just a moment, well, I didn't make any assumptions about who was coming on. I did kind of.
They said who was coming aboard.
After. They didn't say that it was the science officer until after his remains made it back to Earth. Okay? So, yeah, no, it was at first I probably would have assumed that it was the science officer because as of yet, we hadn't seen a science officer. We hadn't seen Spock. We hadn't seen any of that. But it was Commander Sonak, who was lost in a horrible transporter accident. This made me question this. Now, I think that there's a logical possibility, but I did question this because transporter technology was not exactly new at this point. I mean, it was new in stages of the NX-01, but you had already had a 5-year mission with the Enterprise. Then you had 3 more years. Was it 3 years in space dock right? So this is 8 years after the maiden voyage of the Enterprise, if you will. Feels like transporters were not necessarily a new 18-month refit. All right, so we're 6.5 years in. Thank you, Enterprise. 6.5 years in. Transporter technology is not exactly new. Okay? But people are coming in. They're losing the signal. They're trying to get more. Was this an error that happened as a result of the refit? Was this something that could have happened relatively frequently? Is this why Kirk took a pod instead of beaming onto the ship? He lost his science officer, Commander Sonak. And shortly later, all right, and shortly later, it was completely breezed over. Transporter patterns are fixed, Captain. Everything's operating nominal. Just like, oh, yeah, no big deal. We just lost 2 people. And oh, okay, transporters are fixed. Cool, great.
They were working on something in engineering, and you saw a spark, which implies some sort of electrical short. They immediately contacted the transporter room and said, do not engage the transporters as they were transporting someone.
Okay.
That's what happened. This was not like
I missed that.
This was yeah. So if you go back and it's like he's just got done talking to Decker. Scotty and some engineer technician are still working on this panel, and he's like, probing it and stuff. This is all part of the upgrade, all part of the rush. And they do something, it's something happened. Oh, stop! Don't transport. It's like, oh, well, we're already in the middle of one.
Okay. Well, that confused me just a little bit. Doberman says, dude, it was in the script. Sometimes it's just a movie, man. And I get it. But I just, I'm a narrative guy. I look for a story. And that's what we're doing here. When we're talking about the walkthrough, like part of doing an effective walkthrough, part of really watching this for the detail is some of the story, plot holes and things like that, things that didn't make sense that the writers might have shortcutted on. I felt like this might have been a little shortcut. Bubba's got a better explanation than I do, so that's fine. We'll go with that. And then Kirk notifies Starfleet Command to notify Commander Sonak, whose family is at the Vulcan Science Academy on the Vulcan homeworld. Right after this, Kirk gathers the crew on the recreation deck. Now, this was something that we never saw in the original Enterprise. Now, this is probably something like a holodeck for the Enterprise D. We never saw this in the original series, the recreation deck. We saw a little bit better of a look at it later. It looked like it had maybe like a movie screen type thing, Bubba Joe. There was couches and chairs. There was games. This was very much like a traditional game room, if you will. Step one of reimagining the holodeck, so to speak, it was just, it was 10 forward of the Enterprise D.
You think this is a game room?
I mean, I thought it was the recreation deck. It was the hangout. And yes, there were games because later, Decker and Ilea played a game in there, okay? As a matter of fact,
they played a game in there?
Yes. Yes, they did.
I saw them play a game. I didn't think it was in there.
It was in the recreation deck. And it was actually it was a very intimate moment for them. That was where
at the scene right now, I don't see any games. Well, I see a big open area.
Yeah, no, but they went to a table and it had like electronic. Yeah, DJz is right. Thank you, Enterprise. Thank you. Mm-hmm. It's on the rec deck.
I'm not debating that there's a recreation deck.
That's where Decker had his first breakthrough and saw Ilea come through the probe, which we're fast tracking ahead. But nonetheless, like that was somewhere you could tell that Ilea and Decker had played that game in the past. Now, they hadn't played it on the Enterprise. All right, and I'll tell you how we know that here in just a moment, but they did used to play that game. So anyway, he has the crew gathered up on the recreation deck, and then we pull up the footage from the Klingon ship being evaporated. Again, who shot the camera? Okay, it doesn't matter. Epsilon 9 then transmits immediately. I thought this was very interesting movie choice, Bubba Joe. Okay? Again, if we're going to play the role of military, all right, I thought this was a very interesting choice because Epsilon 9, which is a starbase, is transmitting an emergency message on a priority 1 channel, and Kirk was like, oh yeah, just go ahead and put it up on the viewer in front of the entire crew. Anybody else feel like that was weird? Huh? Felt like that was a little weird. He puts this live priority 1 disaster message on the view screen for the entire crew to see it. All right. They're reporting on the size of the sphere, 2 AUs. Can somebody tell me what an AU is? Astronomical unit.
An AU is the distance from the Earth to the sun.
Okay, so this unit, this entity, was 2 AUs in diameter. Is that realistic?
Correct.
Or is this like
No.
Okay. All right. I was just checking. Listen, is this like another 100,000 light years cubed kind of thing? Is that what this is? So
this is so if this thing was on a course to Earth, right? By the time the center of it got to Earth, the exterior of it would be at the sun. Okay.
All right. So there we go. Riding mist on that one. Okay. This is, in fact, another 100,000 light years cubed kind of thing. Galahad, thank you for the resub. Appreciate it. So, so we have 2 AUs in diameter. They scan it. The cloud reacts. Something, they do think that there's something in the middle. All right. Then Kirk asked for the exterior view. Again, Bubba, exterior view of the station, which, by the way, doesn't come from a camera that's sitting on the station outside. It comes from a vantage point way off in space where you can see the whole space station. I'm just saying.
Okay.
We flip to the exterior view. All right, we look at it. The station is being absorbed in the exact same way as the Klingon ship. Funny. I don't know if it was meant to be, but I found a teeny tiny little bit of humor in it. There was a spacewalker, like a guy in an astronaut spacesuit out there just flying for his life. I felt bad laughing at that. I laughed about it. All right, there was a little guy, and he was just flying. He was like, holy God, I got to go. Doberman says that was funny. I laughed. This guy, this little tiny spacewalker suit just flying for his life, and the crew watching all these great camera views, no explanation, no nothing, and then viewer off. Boom, gone. Jeff says, I don't think he made it home, bro. I don't think he did either. And even if he did run, where was he going to go? Because the base was just gone. All right, is just gone. But anyway, viewer off. Oh, even better, Bubba Joe. Even better. So then the station is gone. Okay? Station's gone, right?
Yep.
And there's still a camera guy there holding the camera for the exterior view just to show you that the space station's gone. Where was that camera signal coming from?
So you're telling me that we don't have the ability to have a drone or something else that is not attached to a station but can transmit signal?
Okay, fine.
Okay.
But would it not run through? Thank you for your hydrate. You know what? I forgot to tell you guys earlier that today's show is being brought to you by Sour Pink Lemonade Ghost Energy with 200 milligrams caffeine, 1,000 milligrams carnitine for legendary energy epic focus and none of the crash. That is Sour Pink Lemonade Ghost Energy. Use exclamation point Amazon to buy yours today. Delicious. All right, anyway. Bubba, yes, fine, but that imagery would still be running through the home base. It would still be going back to the base that no longer exists.
You're not wrong.
Okay.
Well, you don't know that it doesn't exist. It's just not where you think it's supposed to be.
Fair. Good. See, Bubba Joe's he's following my thinking now. He's following my thinking now. All right, I like it. So then Kirk just shuts off the camera and says, okay, we leave in 1 hour. Like, just nothing. We out. He comes back to the bridge. All right, we cut out to the bridge. Uhura reports that the transporter's fixed.
Off the viewer?
Huh?
Who shuts off the viewer?
Uhura did.
There you go.
Yeah, Uhura shuts off the viewer. Kirk was like,
Kirk
okay,
doesn't
we're
do
leaving.
anything.
No, Kirk doesn't. He was just like, okay, shut that off. We're leaving. 1 hour. We're leaving. All right, they get back to the bridge. Somehow Uhura makes it back to the bridge before Kirk does. She reports that the transporter system is repaired. All good now. No worries. No testing needed. Everything is fine. Everything is good. Okay? I thought that was an odd little thing to happen right there, but it's fine. Whatever.
But again, they caused the error in engineering that caused this thing to happen.
Fair.
She's just telling him that error's fixed.
I'm going to go with that. All right. I'm going to go with that. So on the bridge, we've got Uhura, we got Sulu, we got Chekhov. All right. And we also have Will Decker is on the bridge as as Kirk's commander. And then
And what else? Why is he actually on the bridge?
Because I think they're getting ready to leave.
He's the science officer.
That's right. That's right. Decker is doubling duty as the science officer because Commander Sonak was vaporized. Actually, he wasn't vaporized. He was just turned inside out and then returned back to Earth and inside out. I'm supposing. That's a Galaxy Quest reference. Starfleet did say that whatever they got back didn't survive long. So it was probably inside out. We're just going to go with that. So then we go and the turbolift doors open and a Deltan shows up. A Deltan. Now, up to this point, I need to go back 50 years, Bubba Joe. Up to this point, do we know anything much about the Deltan species? They never made an appearance in the original series that I know of. Do we know much about the Deltans?
Not that I'm aware of.
What I thought was interesting about this, Fisty says we didn't know anything about it. The first appearance of a Deltan was in this movie. Was in this movie, says Enterprise. I thought this was weird. Now, if this is the first time we're ever meeting a Deltan, then the way they did it was very odd. Let me tell you about this exchange. Okay, the Deltan comes in. All right. First of all, Decker has eyes. Like he's just staring at her like you would a Deltan. Okay. That's fine. All right. Anyway, Kirk's having this conversation. Oh, you're a Deltan. She's like, yes, my oath of celibacy is on file. Okay. We'll take your station. That's it. All right. Your oath of celibacy is on file. Now, if this is the first time we're ever meeting a Deltan, I feel like we probably should have known a little bit more than just talking about celibacy. But I thought this was an odd moment. Obviously, Kirk must have known.
I think it's a well-established moment for Kirk.
Okay, explain.
Kirk sleeps with everyone. And she's saying, back the heck off.
No, I don't think that. Wait, is that it? That's not how I got it. So I thought that Deltans, that was their superpower, right? They could make you fall. Yes. Don't Deltans have like a pheromone superpower? Okay, now see, research time. All right, research time. Do Deltans have a sexual superpower? I'm going to bet the answer is yes. It's amazing that Google AI does not know anything about this. They don't know.
Because you're making it up.
No, I'm not. Okay. Let's see. Their strong sexual attraction could be a distraction for members of other species, which is why the Deltans swore an oath of celibacy upon entering service in Starfleet. Deltans had pain-relieving abilities that manifested during tactile contact. This ability did not heal injuries nor spur sexual feelings. Okay, so I am incorrect. So what? They just thought she was hot? That's it?
She's telling Kirk to back the heck off.
No, I'm not ignoring YouTube chat. I see you over there, Edward. DeCourcy says the same thing. That was basically her way of saying, Kirk, keep it in your pants. Okay, fine. I would not have necessarily picked up on that. I thought it was
why
something
that needed to be said in this movie. What the purpose? Like
I thought it was weird.
I understand they used this character for a different purpose. Why she's here at all? Don't know.
I thought it was an odd an odd thing. All right.
There are an infinite number of red shirts, although no one's wearing a red shirt, that we could have picked from this crew that could have become the avatar for V'ger.
So
right?
this
Didn't have to
was
be her.
this was the sexy lady that had to be a part of this movie. Even back in 1979, you needed a sex symbol in a movie. Is that it? Okay.
I would not be surprised.
All right. So there you go. Count DeVille. I can't even read that out loud. That's terrible. Scalyback is reminding me that Orion women had the pheromones. Okay. See, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking it was the Deltans. So it was the Orions that had the pheromones. Deltans were just hot. Okay. I get it. Resilient says hypersexual hairless species. Somebody was quite frustrated when writing that part. I guess so. So we had never met a Deltan up until this point. They created the Deltan species for this movie.
So
Wowzers.
What is her role?
What was her role? I didn't write that down. She was navigator. There we go. She was navigator. She came in for navigation. She was the navigator. Took me a second. I remember. Yep. So he says, okay, oath of celibacy, check. Can't have at you, check. Go take your station. All right. Meanwhile, Decker basically runs all the way up and has like a little moment. With Ilea, is her name, Lieutenant Ilea. And the first thing that kind of got me drawing a comparative analysis to the relationship was Riker and Troy. I had an Imzadi kind of picture of them. Decker describes that he knew Ilea on the Deltan homeworld when he was assigned there. All right. So I definitely had like Imzadi vibes coming from these two.
I mean, I guess maybe I picked up on something entirely different.
Okay. Do you want to wait until their hallway conversation? Because she was pissed at him. All right. He was all goo goo gaga. She was pissed. All right.
So she was his choice. How many officers did he choose on this crew?
I don't know.
Did he choose Uhura?
No.
Chekhov?
No.
Tulu?
No.
Chief of Engineering?
No.
The science officer? Which was saw earlier was Kirk's choice?
Yes. No.
Science officer was Kirk's choice.
No. Sonak was Captain Decker's choice.
Kirk's choice.
No.
Kirk's choice. Kirk said, I want a Vulcan. Kirk said, I want a Vulcan.
Yeah, but Decker had already had him. He was like, when Sonak and Kirk first met, he was talking about his reporting to Decker. He was already there.
Yes, because Decker was still going to be, because he thought that Decker was still going to be in command of the Enterprise. He was told to report to the Enterprise. He was told that he was going to report to Kirk.
Okay.
So I mean, we can quibble over that one. Maybe that one is a little bit, but of all the people that are actually on the ship, all the officers that are actually on the ship. So he chose
his old high school
only
flame?
One that still remains. Huh?
So he chose his old college roommate, his old college girlfriend?
He chose someone he had familiarity with that he could say, I can rely on this person. All of these other people are people I inherited with the ship, but this is my choice.
Okay. All right. Fair. And it just happened to be, you know what? Proof positive he didn't need to be captain of that ship then. He was thinking with the wrong head. All right. So he brings Ilea in.
What are you basing that on?
Oh, see, you forget details. All right. You want to fast forward? Yeah, that's right, Silver Tab. He was surprised to see her. She was definitely not his pick. All right. He was surprised to see her, and he was like, oh, I haven't seen you since my assignment at the Deltan homeworld and blah, blah, blah. All right. And I definitely got some Imzadi vibes there. Then, just a couple of minutes later, okay? We're in the hallway, okay? And okay, it's actually many minutes later, but that's fine. I'm going to give you this scene. We'll glance over it in a minute. So the Deltan, Ilea, Ilea was in the hallway. Decker and Bones were in Kirk's quarters. They were having a conversation. This was about the wormhole. We're going to talk about the wormhole in a second. All right. So anyway, Kirk reprimands Decker. Then Decker realizes that he saved the ship, and Kirk had to admit he saved the ship. We're going to get to that. I'm skipping scenes. I know, Enterprise. We're skipping scenes, but Bubba doesn't seem convinced that Decker chose Ilea. He didn't. All right. So then Decker and Ilea meet in the hallway. It's a moment. They're having eyes. And Decker was like, "It's so good to see you. And I didn't know you were coming here. And it's great."
He did not say, "I didn't know you were coming here."
No, he did not say that. He runs in. It was definitely Imzadi vibes. He apologizes then for leaving her without ever saying goodbye. She was mad at him because when he had his assignment on the Delton homeworld, when his assignment was up or whatever, he left and didn't say goodbye. He ghosted a Delton. It's impressive, actually. All right. Just dropped her like it was hot. All right. See ya. Gotta go. All right.
So
she was in love.
You do realize that at the rate we're going through this movie, we're going to have like 4 podcasts on this
I
movie.
love it. This is fun to me. All right. This is why I wanted you to do your homework. Guys, Bubba didn't do his homework. I did my homework. Bubba didn't do his homework. That's right. They totally swiped Riker and Troy from this relationship. This was the first and original Imzadi. 1,000% it was. All right. Absolutely.
Okay.
It was.
I disagree, but I mean,
do you remember
Riker
the hallway
and Troy
scene?
Was a completely different dynamic. Riker and Troy is a completely different dynamic.
Riker was surprised by Troy showing up too.
Riker and Troy, right? Riker and Troy were in a relationship. They were actually in a relationship.
So was Decker and Ilea. They were knocking
not
Delton
in a
boots.
relationship.
Yeah, they were. They were in a thing.
Not what that's.
You left without saying goodbye. Why did you leave me, Will? His name is Will. His freaking name is Will Decker, Bubba Joe. Obviously, it's the same. It's the same.
Okay.
His name is Will. I'm just saying.
You're correct. That is correct.
Yes. Oh, damn it. I hit the wrong button. I was gonna hit my favorite button that I've been waiting all show.
You are wrong.
Yes.
Just sit down and be wrong. You are wrong.
Thank you very much. All right.
I'm not wrong.
DeCourcy says, I always thought that Decker was with that and then just left without saying goodbye. That's what happened. He ghosted her.
He was friends with her. What? They spent a lot of time together. Doesn't mean they were in a relationship.
Are you out of your mind? They were Bubba. They were friends. They were just friends. You left without saying goodbye. Oh, Will.
She didn't cry at all. She's not showing any emotion.
Oh, no. She was pissed. She was upset.
She was pissed, but
yeah,
not
because he left without saying goodbye. They were in love.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
All right, so let's back up. Anyway, I just wanted to fast forward to that scene because, yes, thank you. Thank you, Doberman. They were absolutely a thing. Anyway, okay, so we're getting ready to go. We're in space dock, and we disengage all the clamps, and we turn off all the lights, which is another 7-minute sequence, okay? And we engage thrusters to get out.
First, we have to kidnap someone.
Huh?
First, you have to kidnap someone.
That's true. That's right. We got to kidnap Bones because Bones won't beam up. All right.
Right.
He refuses to beam up. And do you blame him? They probably haven't even cleaned up the transporter pad yet. All right. There's probably still smushed guts.
They probably called him to make sure the guy was dead.
Yeah. He's there. He's looking at what happened on the transporter accident. And then they're like, okay, you ready to beam up?
Said, hey, can you make sure this guy's dead? We gotta get a doctor in here.
And then he shows up. They're like, okay, you ready to beam up? No, I'm not.
You're next. He's like, no.
So Bones doesn't want to beat up. Kirk says, oh, doesn't matter. Beam him anyway. Starfleet, beam him up anyway. So then he comes up. And by the way, he is not dressed. He does not look like, I mean, I actually wonder, Bubba, if he was even in Starfleet. Clearly at this moment, he is in a retired status. And I want to ask this question. I asked this question earlier. This is another hypothetical, Bubba Joe.
That is no. It's stated he was a seldom used reserve activation clause.
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying, though. What the question that I meant to ask was, what happened? What were they all doing? Because Bones didn't. He was not in the service. Okay, Admiral Nagura again activated him. Basically, he was drafted. Okay, activated him with this seldom used clause. All right, but
he was. Uhura did it.
Not Uhura, Nagura. I'm not.
Nagura. Do you think Nagura did it? I think Kirk did it.
Oh, obviously, but he says specifically that Admiral Nagura did it, and then Kirk tells him right out, "I need you. It was me. I did that. I have to have you. I need you. I need you. I need you, man." All right, and they actually had a really nice moment. I love the personal. I loved this. This scene, actually. It was very, very nice between Shatner and DeForest Kelley. What I'm curious about is where the hell they all went, right? Spock obviously was on Vulcan, all right? And Bones went off to a farm. Uhura, Sulu, and Chekhov were still on the Enterprise. Scotty was still with Starfleet. What happened, Bubba? And I'm sure that this is in a book somewhere. But after the 5-year mission, they just all bounced? What happened?
Bones didn't actually ever want to be in Starfleet. Like, this was like his backup plan.
Yeah.
Right. He was kind of doing this out of an obligation. Kirk got promoted, right? So he's no longer going to be a captain. The rest of the crew, they're all babies in Starfleet, right? They're all kids.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like Kelvin universe where they're kind of all the same age. No, Kirk is like significantly older than them, has significantly more experience. The rest of them are just working their way through Starfleet, right? They're they start off as ensigns, move into lieutenants, right? Bones he'd done his tour duty. He'd done all of his tours. He's like, I can get out. I'm out. I can take the 20-year retirement. I'm done.
Yeah.
And Spock's the same way. Spock's like, I did my tour duty. I want to go purge this human side of me, and I'm out.
Well, they left. They
just moved on with their lives.
DeCourcy says the same thing. After the 5-year mission, they all pretty much just went and did their own thing. So Bones comes up. Him and Kirk have a moment, and Kirk's like, "Listen, we're up against something. We are up against something like we've never seen. I need you. I need you." And Bones reluctantly agrees. All right.
And it is overacted to the 14th degree.
I need you, Bones. His hand shook and everything. I need you.
Yep.
I need you, Bones.
Yep.
All right.
That's more realistic than what happened on the screen.
It was very dramatic.
Might as well have had the camera looking right at the hand like you were showing. I
need your bones. I need your bones. Bones, I need you. All right. That's
So DJ.
Damn it, Jim. Yeah, what?
Were you planning on taking a break today?
Yeah, we probably should. You want to take a break?
I mean, we are only, an hour and 55 minutes into this podcast.
Do you have a hard out, or should we break this up into 2 shows? Because I'm having a great time. Bubba, let me just tell you.
My only hard out is my voice will cut out at some point.
Can I just say this? I'll say this, and then we're going to take our first break, and we'll come back, and we'll see how much Bubba has to do. Yeah, that's right. We're 2 hours in, and we haven't even left Space Dock yet. All right? We're only 30 minutes into the... No, that's not true, because just the flyby was 20 minutes. Okay?
We are exactly 34 minutes into this movie.
But... the podcast is going to be longer than the movie. Oh, my God. How is this even possible? I had a great time with this, though. I loved the movie. I loved it.
If
Bubba
we
Joe said
that
podcasts
talking about this movie, we're going to spend a year talking about Wrath of Khan and like 6 years talking about The Undiscovered Country.
Listen, Bubba told me we would only have 5 minutes to talk about this movie, and I'm like, nope. I took
because
6
there's only 5 minutes worth of things talking about. You keep bringing up things that are like nonsensical.
No, listen, I'm not just talking about the story. We're talking about the movie. We're talking about how it was made. It's 50 years old. Listen, there are some beautiful things about this movie. And I watched it with a nitpicky. Here, listen, I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to show you my notes. By the way, Bubba, we are only on page 2 of my notes out of 6. Okay? I have all of this. We're only on page 2 of my notes. The movie was 2 hours and 16 minutes. Okay? Anyway, I had a good time with this assignment. I really did. All right, we'll take a break. This was, yes, in hindsight, Tarpy, I thought the movie was fascinatingly entertaining, which is all a movie is ever supposed to be. We had the same conversation about Section 31. Might not have been the best movie by all accounts, but it was entertaining. Edward says it was the second worst Star Trek movie. Fine. That just means that all the rest of them were so much better. All right, but this one was not bad. It's not bad.
Oh, it's bad.
No, it's not bad. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we got to take a break. When we come back, we will leave Space Dock. And if we need to break this show up into two different shows, then we will. All right, but I've had a great time, Bubba. This has been a lot of fun. I never thought that I could do a walkthrough episode, but this has been great. Don't we average 5 pages for a 5-minute pre-arc video? Yes. Yeah. So we're right on pace. Divine says this movie was better than Nemesis. I might agree.
It's not better than well, let's get out of Space Dock and do a little summary, and we'll see where we go from there.
All right, we got to take a break right here on Talking Trek Live, Star Trek Fleet Command's official podcast Between the Arcs with our friend and fellow Star Trek lover Bubba Joe. We'll be back right after these messages. Please don't go anywhere. So much more to come.
This program is made possible in part by a grant from Cream of What, the soft and pasty breakfast cereal that may or may not actually be a form of food.
Hello?
Hey, what's going on?
Why are you calling me?
I don't know. I just wanted to say hi.
Did you text me first?
No.
Why didn't you text me?
I don't know. I just wanted to hear your voice.
You could have used the voice texting feature, and I could have voice texted you back.
You do know these are still called cell phones.
Well, you should have texted me to let me know you were going to call, that's all.
Huh?
Don't you know about the pre-call text? It's common courtesy so I can mentally prepare to talk to you.
20 years of marriage wasn't enough time?
I'm not ready for this. Text me later. Love you.
If you loved Wordle, you'll literally wet your pants over the new word game that literally makes you crazy. Literally.
Really?
No, literally. That's the name of the game.
I was literally confused there.
Every day you're given a new word, and you guess if it's literally being misused.
Sounds literally ironic.
And that's how it works.
Amazing!
Not really.
Are you being sarcastic?
Absolutely.
Oh, I get it.
No, you don't. You'll literally never run out of misused words with literally.
Please stop saying this word.
I went broke at the ball game, so did half of the crowd. $9 for peanuts and Cracker Jack. Beer cost more than a kilo of crack, and it's way too much for a hot dog. But the kids want 2 every game, so it's 1, 2, 3 cards maxed out at the old ball game. All together now. I went broke at the ball game, so did half of the crowd. $9 for peanuts and Cracker Jack. Beer costs more than a kilo of crack, and it's way too much for a hot dog. But the kids want 2 every game, so it's 1, 2,
Welcome back, everybody. Woo, woo, woo. Appreciate you guys all being here. What's going on? My name is UltimatDJz. This is Talking Track, Star Trek Fleet Command's official podcast. Yo! Welcome in as we are in between the arcs and discussing more of the Star Trek universe, this time doing a walkthrough. You know, really truthfully, Bubba, and not... Where did Bubba go? Bubba! 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 We lost Bubba. Hopefully we'll get it back here in a second. What we should have done absolutely was a Wrath of Khan walkthrough. But we had had this one planned for weeks. We had this one planned for a while, and I wasn't allowed to talk about what was coming. Sorry, I just read an insulting DM. Have I seen DMs? No, I am very, very behind on DMs. I've got like over 100. Murphy, I'll try to get to them this week. Good afternoon. Welcome in, everybody. Appreciate you guys all being here. Bubba Joe, I don't know where he went. Bubba Joe and I having a conversation and talking about Star Trek, the original motion picture, which we're going to get him back here in just a moment and continue our conversation. Unless that's it. We might have to cut it right there. I don't know, but that might be it right then and there. Okay, can't honestly say. Tarpy, I think Tarpy says I think he was offended when I said I love the movie, and then he just up and left. All right. Ben Sai says, DJ, when will my free pack be sent out? Dude, I haven't. It won't be soon, bro. I haven't. You haven't even sent me what pack you want. A. B. Need a player ID. C. I don't usually do those until like week 2 of the arc. I only do it one time a month, and it'll be week 2 of the arc. All right. Matters says 6 pages over 2 hours is the DJ equivalent of no notes. No, I've got notes. I took all the notes. I've got the greatest notes. All right. I have the best notes. I have all the notes. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Lost In for dropping 5 gifted. Thank you. Galahad for your resub. Alpha Zypher, Trickle, the Howland King. Lost In for your 100 bits and your $100 tip. Thank you so very much. Mid Strangler with the 19 months. Lost In with another 5 gifted. Hero with the resub. Ransusi, Dastros with the resub. Bender the Robot with the resub. Thank you guys so very much. It is absolutely amazing and wonderful, and I appreciate having you guys all here. Ladies and gentlemen, back from... I'm not doing a 6-hour stream. Lost In. I can't do a 6-hour stream today. But we did find him, ladies and gentlemen. Bubba Joe's back. There he is.
Sorry about that. Had to fresh cup of coffee and, stretch my legs.
You know what's better than coffee is using !Amazon to go over and search for your favorite flavor of Ghost Energy with 200 milligrams of caffeine, 1,000 milligrams of carnitine for legendary energy, epic focus, and none of the crash for only 5 calories. Today, my flavor of choice, sour pink lemonade. I really, really like it, Bubba.
As I've said many times before, in 20 years, when they figure out that all energy drinks cause cancer, I will be the last man surviving.
It's fine. You got to die from something.
I drank coffee.
Yeah, you know what? Caffeine might do it. It might just be caffeine. Maybe it's coffee. Okay? Maybe it's coffee. Ransusi says, why didn't you copy those notes into ChatGPT? Because ChatGPT wouldn't have been able to interpret my notes. My notes are my notes. It tells me what I want to talk about. All right.
So you're saying an intelligence could not interpret your notes? So far, I agree with that.
I hate you so much. That was the best one. That was a zinger. Guys, Bubba zinged me. He's zinging to me. Absolutely amazing. All right. Appreciate it. Well, welcome back, everybody. Bubba and I are getting together for our Star Trek Universe podcast once a month where we do stuff outside of the game. We talk about what's going on in the Star Trek universe, and this time we're in a little bit of a hiatus. Really, when you're talking about Star Trek Universe events, that are coming up, Bubba Joe. We haven't yet seen Strange New Worlds premiere. That is still, I don't even think they've set a date yet. It still just says sometime in late 2025.
2025.
Yeah,
Yep.
so we don't have a date on that yet. We don't have a date on Starfleet Academy. We don't have any new.
Starfleet Academy is still filming, so I don't expect it until 2026 probably.
We don't have any information on the new sitcom for Star Trek. Goodness gracious, I just lost her name in my head. Eugene Cordero's best friend. Somebody help me. Mariner, Beckett Mariner's voice. Anyway, she's developing a new sitcom. Starfleet Academy. Actually, I'm pretty sure Starfleet Academy is wrapped in initial filming, Lost in, but they're still doing supplemental, and they're still doing post-prod on that. But yeah, I do think that they're actually done filming. Their principal filming is done. That's right. The architect. All right. Strange New Worlds. Very excited, says DeCourcy. I'm very excited for that too. The trailer looks great.
Strange New Worlds. I'm super excited for Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, it looks great.
I love the teaser they dropped about the Vulcans.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very good. I look forward to that. The sad thing about it is only 10 episodes, right? That's the worst thing about it, is that it's only 10 episodes. So we'll look forward to seeing what's happening.
4.5 Vulcans to beam down.
Yeah, 4.5. It's going to be great. And then, of course, when they come back, it's even funnier. Spock is out of his mind, okay? Like, this is going to be so much fun. That episode's going to be great. But that just saying, like, just to point out, there's nothing new. There is nothing to report. Bubba, we are in a little bit of a lull. You know what? I do have something to report for our fans. Our fans. And Bubba, I have not discussed this with you yet, only because I know that you're already going to be there. Ladies and gentlemen, it is official. Tarpey is gonna have a heart attack because she doesn't know anything about this yet. Talking Trek will be live at San Diego Comic-Con. Yeah! That's going to be our West Coast meetup. And Tarpey immediately starts going and making hotel reservations and scribbles and doing the things and all the stuff. I wasn't joking. No, I wasn't joking. And Tarpey says, "Oh, F that. You're not going to organize this one for us? Come on." All right.
So about that.
Yeah. You're not going? You got to go.
I'm not going.
What?
I'm not going.
Why not?
Because I missed the hotel registration because of work, and I don't think I can get most of the days that I could go to the convention off of work. The only one I probably could get off would be the weekends, and I only have one of those badges. So I made the decision to do some other nerd things this year. I'm going to a different convention this year that is going to have some Star Trek people.
Denied.
But well,
I'll get your passes.
Will see if there's a way that I can get out there for a weekend.
I'll get your passes.
Do something like that.
Yeah, no. We're doing it. We're doing it. Right. San Diego Comic-Con. We're going to be there Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I'll probably be flying home Sunday, but yeah, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we're going to be there. And I am in the process of working on things. Griffin is booked. Bubba Joe is going to get there, okay? And for those of you guys who wanted to do the West Coast meetup, this is it. I will not be doing Star Trek Las Vegas. We are not, no, San Diego or Vegas. San Diego made the better offer. That's where we're going. All right? That's right, Bubba. They made the better offer. They wanted us. So anyway, we're going to be out there. It's going to be fun. And am I doing Star Trek Charlotte? I have no plans on doing Star. Listen, I have a real day job. I can't just up and go to all these conventions all the time. I got to pick one or two of them. And this one was we're trying to do the West Coast thing. All right, trying to do the West Coast thing because you guys wanted a West Coast thing. All right, we did the Miami thing. Now you want West Coast, so we're going to do San Diego. All right, what is it, Bubba Joe? July 20th or 21st or something like that.
I'll give you the dates here in a second.
Thank you. So anyway, there you go. Just a tip says, ooh, in my backyard. That's right. We're going to be in San Diego. Tarpey says, if you pay for my flights and hotel, I'll plan things. I mean, that may be a thing. We'll have to talk. Okay. Listen, listen, I'm not paying for my flights and hotel. All right. So I'll see what I can do. We'll put you on the staff list. Let me see what I can come up with. All right.
So I'm just pull up a calendar to make sure I give you the correct date here. Looks like July 24th through the 27th.
There you go. 24th through the 27th of July. San Diego Comic-Con. Talking Trek will be there. All right. So we're pretty excited about that. I have no idea yet what we'll be doing. Probably nothing. We might just be there and like be recording some content and stuff like that. I don't think I'm going to be involved on anything, but no. So there you go. Enterprise says, you just gave me a task for my boss to do. Wait, what? I'm very confused, Enterprise. What? Yeah, Tarpy says, now a good question is whether or not I already have things planned that week. Well, cancel it. I'm just kidding. I'm joking, Tarpy. Listen, we'll talk. This is very recent development. I wasn't even going to announce it today, but I was going. I'm surprised, Bubba. I would have figured you go every year.
So I do, right? But this year, I have. I mean, we haven't really talked about this, but I have got a promotion at work.
Congratulations, Bubba!
So I don't have quite the freedom I once had.
I gotcha.
So, but yeah, no, I am. I have badges, which is usually the hardest thing.
Yeah.
But I missed the hotel, and I missed. I looked at some flights, and they were kind of out there. So
yeah.
I am able to go to another convention, which I put in the chat. For
in Phoenix,
basically free. For basically free. So
who's going to be at yours?
Do that.
Who's going to be at yours? Maybe we'll go to yours instead.
I know that is it Gene Cordero?
Eugene Cordero, love him. Hey, who's organizing the Phoenix one?
Phoenix Fan Fusion. It's a huge convention.
Yo, can you get us in?
I don't know what you mean.
Can you get us in?
I do not have that kind of pull.
Can you get us a meeting with the people in charge? Maybe we can come in and I would rather do more work with a smaller convention than just be present for a large convention. You know what I'm saying? So I would love to go to Phoenix, and it's West Coast still.
So Eugene, for Star Trek people, Eugene Cordero,
love him.
Jonathan Frakes,
yes.
Brent Spiner,
love him. He won't talk to us.
And I want to say there was another. I want to say there were a couple of other Star Trek.
Brent Spiner doesn't talk to anybody.
Big Star Wars. There's a lot of Star Wars people that are coming as well, and then just some other like Marvel. There's a big Lord of the Rings this year. They've got all the Hobbits coming.
Nice. We won't be doing Chicago.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah, I'm not going to be doing Chicago either. We did East Coast. We're going to go do West Coast.
So I think that if you have an in at San Diego,
Phoenix is not inconvenient.
Would be,
I don't. Tarpy wants to wait. She says do Phoenix. That's what I'm thinking. San Diego. Listen. San Diego has us coming out there, but I don't think we're involved. I think we're just going to like be there and we can do some broadcasting and stuff like that. But I don't think we're going to be like be there to do work like we did in Nashville.
Well, because San Diego was planned months ago, right?
Yeah.
And Phoenix is also kind of in that route. Phoenix is a lot shorter timeline, so you've only got like a month to get something put together for Phoenix.
Oh no, done.
As opposed to San Diego, you've got like 2 months.
Wait, what are you talking about? San Diego? I thought you just said Phoenix was at the same week. It's not?
No. It's not the same week. That's why I can go.
All right, well, that's going to be a work thing for us.
Phoenix is the
Tarpy, you are unmuted.
And of June.
You're not muted? You're not muted? You're not even on the stage. That's why. That's why, Tarpy, you ain't on the stage. Now you can talk, Tarpy. Why can't I hear Tarpy? Hang on a second, Tarpy. You're not muted, but I don't know what's happening. Hang on, I'm going to fix it. Where is chat? There we go. Oh, there you are. Got you. I just had to click a button. Hi. Ladies and gentlemen, Tarpy's on the stage.
Muted, right? Hi.
No. It wasn't actually muted. There was a Discord software update or something.
Functionally the same thing, right?
Yeah. Anyway, I don't have time to do Phoenix in a month.
But you have time to do something in 2 months?
Well, yeah, I already planned for it.
Oh my God.
All right, maybe. What's the date on the June one?
June 6th through the 8th.
Oh my God, that's a month. That's not even a month.
Dang it. I can't do that at all.
I can't do the 6th to the 8th either.
Okay.
I actually know where I'm going to be. I'm going to be in Tampa that weekend.
San Diego is actually closer to 3 months, right? Because it's the end of July.
Yeah, it's
so
the
it's
end
like
of July.
All of May, all of June, and
but you're
half
not making
of
this
July.
better.
Okay.
No, I understand. So had you told me
I didn't
you were
know.
planning on going to San Diego.
I wasn't. It was literally just this week. It was
Wait, what were
just
those dates again, Bubba?
this week
For-
that they gave me something. July 27th through 29th.
24th through 27th or
Yeah,
27th
something
through
like
29th?
I don't know.
24th through 20.
DJs,
July
if you show up
24th
on the
through
wrong
27th.
day.
Yeah, we're going to go on a Tuesday at midnight. Okay? It'll be fine there. All right.
Oh my God, I just died again in Fortnite. Thanks, DJs.
I see you are celebrating May the 4th, Tarpy.
Always.
Yeah, it's
Didn't that
going
launch
very, very
today?
well.
Yeah.
Didn't that the Star Wars
It
content
launched
in
2 days
Fortnite?
ago. Yeah, 2 days ago.
Okay.
Well, we'll keep working on the San Diego plans then. We'll see what happens there. And again, we'll see what actually comes out of it. We just had a conversation this week. And I said yes. But I don't have any other information, so we'll just see how it goes. All right. We'll wing it. Ha ha. All right.
That's gonna go great.
Yeah, it'd be fine. Bubba Joe, we're 2 hours in. Let's fast track here a little bit. All right. We have not even left space.
All right. So my summary for the movie is that it's terrible.
No, stop it. That's not a walkthrough. All right. We're gonna go to the bridge.
You said fast track. I was jumping ahead.
No, we're gonna go. We're gonna leave Space Dock now. We are now past the runtime of the movie. I understand. We're on the bridge. Kirk calls for thrusters. Ilea, the Delton, is at navigation. Sulu at the helm. It's a very nice little flyout scene. This flyout scene, by the way, was not overdone. All right. It was not too long. It was actually really, really nice. We see them flying away from the planet. By the way, do you remember what this planet looked like, Bubba Joe? This planet was completely blue. This did not look like Earth. Obviously, it was. Okay. But it did not look like Earth. Does anybody remember seeing this planet in that scene? It was completely blue with no land masses. And it was obviously meant to be Earth, because the ship had just come out of dock, and then you had, which was a beautiful effect, you had the sun that just kind of came around the edge and then lit up the hull. This was probably, at the time, Bubba Joe, amazing lighting technology that they had done here. Again, I know the cameras were new and the modeling was new, but this was a beautiful scene. Not even flying out of the dock, all right? But once they were out of the dock, you saw the ship, you saw the planet in the background, and then the sun peeks around the edge of the planet and just casts sunlight all over the Enterprise. It was a beautiful, beautiful scene. Kirk calls down to engineering and asks Scotty to ready Impulse. And then he gives Sulu the command to go to Impulse. Now, we are still inside the solar system. I am going to have science questions for you, Bubba Joe, all right, about, like, how fast is Impulse? We know that warp speed is, like, the distance traveled by light in a year, right? That's warp 1 is the distance that light would travel in 1 year. Is that correct?
No.
What is that? What is warp speed?
That is the speed of light. Honestly, I do not know.
The speed of light. So we're just traveling the speed of light. All right. Well, and Impulse, how fast is Impulse?
Hypodermics has this correct.
Warp 1 is the speed of light.
Warp 1 is the speed of light. Okay.
Fine.
I mean, that is a interesting concept, but okay.
What is speed of plot? What are you guys talking about? What is plot? 186,000 miles per second.
It goes exactly as fast as you need it to go in the movie.
Oh.
That's what speed of plot is.
Well, okay. That's funny. That's funny because Kirk gives the order to go to Impulse. And Sulu responds with, "Aye, Captain, 0.5 warp." Now, obviously, that is sublight, all right? But I have never heard in any other Star Trek them refer to Impulse as a fraction of warp. This might be the first time I've actually heard that, or at least paid attention to it, Bubba Joe. Impulse was a fraction of warp, not just quarter impulse, half impulse, full impulse, whatever. This was 0.5 impulse. So what is impulse? It's just like...
Don't know.
Has that ever been defined?
Probably.
Enterprise says warp 0.5 has only ever been mentioned in this movie. I wondered. I've not heard it in anything else, but I did notice that line that we went to half impulse. Now, we're still inside our galaxy, or inside our solar system.
So, according to, let's see here. So according to the first thing that came up on search is that impulse speed is basically something sub speed of light. So the impulse speed of the Enterprise D is 0.92 the speed of light. Other ships, it's a little bit slower. Roughly 1/4 impulse is roughly 0.25 C. So I think that the idea there is that if you're going full impulse, that you are approaching the speed of light.
You're right there at warp 1. Okay. Now, does anybody else think that it is crazy fast? Okay. Tarpy, science question for you science nerds out there. If I was traveling at full impulse, how long would it take me to get from Earth to Neptune? Is that a long period of time? How long does it take? Scaleback says 3 minutes. I feel like you're making that up. Because if you just invented that, like just pulled that out of your head, I would be wildly impressed. Tarpy says Scaly's actually very, very close.
It's probably right around there.
Wow, no doubt. All right, so it would take 3 minutes to go from Earth to Neptune at full impulse, or warp 1, rather, okay? So here's the thing. We note that we are, if it is only 3 minutes, Divine says it's 8 minutes from the Earth to the Sun. Well, then it can't be 3 minutes to Neptune. Right? Ben Sai says we're actually closer to 40 hours. Oh, so they could get through with one of our podcasts by the time they get there. Chatterfang says the same thing. Sunlight is 8 minutes away.
I have some new information here, DJ.
Okay, information, please.
When they say something like go to 1/4 impulse, they basically are referencing the power level of the engines. It is not a set speed for each ship. It depends on the output of those engines. So you are turning the dial to quarter, half, 3/4 full of whatever that engine can do.
Do we not have a freaking speedometer?
Not a set speed.
Do we not have
not a set speed?
Okay, not a set speed. Well, this is interesting then, because we are at 0.5 impulse, which is mentioned, 0.5 warp, which is mentioned by Sulu right here. So at 0.5 warp, now let me ask that question. At 0.5 warp, that would be half the speed of light. So if it's 8 minutes to get from Earth to the Sun, then 0.5 warp would be 16 minutes, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
If the 8 is correct.
Now, in between Sulu going to 0.5 warp, they're heading away from Earth. By the way, Kirk does pull up the exterior viewer and the rear exterior viewer, so we see us traveling away from Earth, and it's shrinking quickly, Bubba Joe. Like, it's zoom, all right? We're seeing us move away very, very quickly. However, Kirk mentions there in his captain's log that he wants to go to warp inside our solar system. Now, I see Tarpy twitching in Scientist in the chat. What happens if you go to warp inside the solar system? See, some of this stuff is stuff that I've not heard of in other Star Treks. Okay?
So there were regulations going to warp inside the solar system because of all the planetoids in our solar system and how that would affect the warp drives, right? However, if you recall, Zephram Cochrane went to warp in our solar system.
Yeah. He was right up above, Australia.
I mean, just because of that does not mean that, you can't do it. But my interpretation, because this comes up in other Star Treks, it comes up in Next Generation. I believe it comes up in Deep Space Nine. That you're not supposed to warp through Sol, right? You're not supposed to warp through the solar system,
Okay.
our solar system. And that the idea there is that the gravitational fields are affecting the warp bubble. And so you do not want to have to deal with that. That's my understanding. That is bad for the warp field and the warp engines.
Bad juju. Okay. Well, that would make a little bit of sense, because Kirk wants to go to warp inside our solar system. All right. Now the entity is only 20 hours away. All right. So Kirk wants to go to warp. Bones comes and he talks and says, "Hey, listen, you're pushing." Right here, Bones is on the bridge. He leans over Kirk's shoulder and says, "You're pushing." And Kirk looks at him, smiles, and ignores him and says, "Go to warp anyway." Now, this is it. So let me ask this question. The next scene, immediately upon going to warp, I mean, they're at warp for less than a second, and red alert. They enter what they described as a wormhole. The graphics go nuts. This scene might be my least favorite scene in the entire movie. Okay, I hated this scene. They go into this wormhole. All right. By the way, when they engage warp, that was also, in my opinion, very tacky graphics. You saw the circle with the airport runway lights, Bubba Joe. Like that was not what warp looked like. Not to us. You know what I'm saying? Not to Trek fans. Even in the original series, warp didn't look like that. Warp, it was very tacky. All right. I didn't like it. But as soon as we enter warp, we enter this wormhole. All right. The wormhole effect starts, for some reason, spreading us all out and pixelating us all. Okay. I have a lot of questions about this, Bubba Joe, so I'm just going to rapid fire them to you. Let's see what you can do here.
What did warp look like in the original series?
Was not a circle of airport runway lights. That's for sure.
Well, no, that's bad. So what did it look like? Did they ever have a picture of them going to warp inside the original series?
No, they did not. The technology at the time.
So what they're, yeah.
So I see what you're saying.
So you're saying it looks different from Next Gen, and my answer would be obviously it looks different than Next Generation.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, the whole disco circling swimming thing here is they've done something wrong. This is not normal warp. They've done something wrong. Calling it a wormhole, I didn't like but they're, this is them making up and using words that they think are cool and sciencey, and this is just what they do, right? That wasn't, it's not a wormhole as we understand wormholes, but what it is an error in warp, and it's going to look different than normal warp.
Well, now really the circle with the little lights, that was what they considered to be normal warp. Then, of course, us getting all pixelated and drawn out and all that stuff, our trailing pixels. It was like Windows 95 with a trailing mouse trail. All right, that's what it looked like. I thought it was horrendous. But here we're stuck.
So normal warp is just the stars moving past you, right? That's the effect of normal warp. It's just the stars moving past you. As soon as that orange thing appears and they come upon it, that's when the red alert sounds. That's the anomaly.
Yeah, the orange thing. But even before that, I was talking about the airport runway lights. It was like Stargate kind of thing. All right, it was very weird. But anyway, you're right. Then this wormhole, this orange thing shows up, and we're in a wormhole. All right, now this whole scene kind of messed me up a little bit. I've got many questions. I'm going to ask you guys these questions, and then you guys help me out. We're stuck. We can't drop out of warp. We're in warp in a wormhole. Then we see an asteroid.
I don't think we're in a wormhole, but go ahead.
Then we see an asteroid, which is just ho-humming along, like just chilling, right in the dead-ass middle of this wormhole. All right? There's an object. We're going to smash into it. We're going to kill ourselves. We're going to be blown into smithereens and bits. Kirk orders phasers. Decker says, "No. Counterman phasers." This whole scene is so stupid. So anyway, then
So
Decker orders torpedoes.
So why do you think they did that? You think they did that because they thought it was cool?
I assume they thought it was cool. Explain it to me, Bubba. I hated this scene. If this whole scene had been removed from the movie, I would have been happier. This was a dumb scene.
So this scene is all about the warp engines not working properly. Take the wormhole thing out of it, right?
Okay.
The wormhole, the warp engines are not working properly, and they are not compensating for the time dilation effect of moving at the speed that they are moving. This is a real looking time dilation effect. It's actually a fairly minor time dilation effect, but this is a real time dilation effect where you think you are and where the light perceives you to be are different. This is a real scientific.
So you're saying
effect.
this was the scientific scene?
Yes.
Well, okay then. I'll take it back. I mean, if it was based in science, that's fine. I just didn't like it. All right. Yeah, I know. I mean, listen, if this was, now I will say, there have been a lot of conversations. We talked about this on the cruise this past year. There's been interviews. There's been the Roddenberry archives. All right. It is well known at this point that Gene Roddenberry actually had a lot of buddies that worked at NASA and all these science administrations. He consulted with them regularly. So you're saying, Bubba Joe, that this was scientifically accurate for what would have happened in a time dilation spatial anomaly?
So the idea of time dilation is that where you are and where light reflects you to be are not the same. And that's what's happening here. That's why you have this phased effect. Now, this is the way they decided to show it on film, but that's the effect of what's happening is that the where you are and where light is reflecting off of you to indicate you are being are not the same thing. Now, normally, when you exist in reality, they are the same, right? I can look at you, you can look at me. We are moving at, 30 miles an hour in a car. The light is moving fast enough that you don't see any difference in between where we exist and where the light tells us we are. Okay. But that's what this is trying to indicate is this time dilation effect of there's something has gone wrong. And now not only is it affect you in terms of where you perceive it in visual, but it is affecting your voice. Now, obviously, affecting your voice should happen a lot sooner than it should happen with light. To get the audio effect that we're getting in this movie, the light effect actually should be quite a bit less pronounced. To get the light effect in the movie, you wouldn't be able to use words at all. Like the words would be so much further drawn out.
Okay.
Right? Because the speed of sound is so much slower than the speed of light. But that's, whatever. That's just, to give the effect that they're trying to achieve. But the reality of you've done something wrong as you're approaching the speed of light, you are no longer able to compensate. Like if you actually try to go, DJ, if you try to actually physically just go the speed of light, you turn on the engine and you start moving the speed of light without using the technology of a warp engine, there is an effect that happens, and I don't remember all of my relativistic effects, but there's a relativistic effect that happens where you will traverse many, many, many years into the future compared to your people, and you will have only aged weeks or months, and they will have aged years and decades. So you can ask next time you chat with Dr. Aaron, I'm sure she has a much, much better explanation because she lives this a little bit more than I do.
Okay.
I did take this class in college, so it was 1 or 2 years ago. But yeah, so this is a real fit. Like, it's not exactly going to look like this, but that's what they were trying to bring to screen. This was unlike saying we're in a wormhole, or unlike some of the other things where they're just making things up to say it looks like technobabble. This is actually a real phenomenon.
This was science. Okay. Well, that actually satisfies me. That works a little bit. The gears are crunching in my head, Tarpy. That's right. So they've got okay, well then explain the science of the asteroid. Why was there an asteroid in this wormhole?
So again, I don't think that they're in a wormhole. Okay?
What were they in?
They have created a warp field that is not doing what the warp field is supposed to do. The asteroid, and I agree with Iron Fist. The asteroid is plot armor. The asteroid is to create some danger that they now have to overcome.
Gotcha. Okay, speed of plot. Got it. So Anyway, Kirk orders phasers. Decker countermands him on the bridge and orders torpedoes. All right. They fire the torpedoes. They blow up the asteroid. And as soon as they do, the detonation presumably collapses whatever thing they're in. And now all of a sudden, everything is back to normal. No damage, no casualties. Comms are normal. Engines are back. Like, everything is fine.
One casualty.
Huh?
There was one casualty.
Yes, there was one injury that was Chekhov's
Kirk's
hand.
pride.
Oh, well, Kirk's
I was talking about Kirk's pride.
Yeah. Didn't Chekhov get... Yeah, Chekhov got fried on this one too, didn't he?
No,
that was later. Yeah, Kirk's
later.
pride. Yeah, gotcha. Okay. So, Kirk says that we're done. He gives Sulu the con. Decker, Kirk, and Bones head over to Kirk's quarters. They want to have a meeting. Kirk calls out Decker for countermanding the phaser order. Decker explains that the phasers would have been inoperative. The phasers draw energy from something with the warp and the XYZ technobabble, and the phasers would not have worked. All right? So
correct.
Decker uses the torpedoes to save the ship. Kirk has to admit that Decker saved the ship. Decker exits, and then we get our famous little Imzadi rendezvous in the hallway. Meanwhile,
but don't you dare countermand me again.
Yeah. Basically, I know you saved the ship, you saved everybody, but I'm still in charge. All right. Now, you have this little scene in the hallway between Ilea and Will Decker, where they talk about the fact that he ghosted her on her home planet. We don't need to go back and talk about that. Meanwhile,
so if you think that she's really that upset with him, why did she smile at him on the bridge?
It was like a familiarity thing. Like, oh, no, there's that douche.
When they pull away from space dock, they make a note to have her look back at Decker, and she is smiling like, this is my best friend. I'm so happy to be here.
What? Best friend? She's probably just remembering all the great times they had in Imzadiville. All right? Listen, he straight up ghosted this girl on her home planet. It was like going to prom, and then all of a sudden, she just didn't show up. All right? Enterprise says, I can agree with some mixed signals. But anyway, that's right. We're going backwards. We don't need to do this. All right? Amber says, they were friends with benefits, Bubba. All right? That's how you do everything. She was like, ooh, we get to have some more dessert. All right? Anyway, we go back into Kirk's quarters. All right? Bones is telling Kirk basically, hey, stop being a prick. All right? You're being an asshole. All right? He says that. Then they pick up a communication randomly from a shuttle who wants to dock, a shuttle from the Vulcan Science Academy. They're all very confused. They don't know exactly what's going on. Kirk orders Chekhov to go and greet the passenger. There's only one passenger on the ship. They did a cool little graphical thing here. I don't know that I've seen this very many times before. I do remember one or two episodes, I think in TNG. One of them was the think tank episode where the ship kind of does like this weird flip thing. And then we also saw, I think we also saw this once in the Kelvin universe, a ship that like flips around. Actually, I think it was a Vulcan ship then too. Maybe on Strange New Worlds as well. Maybe this is just a Vulcan design.
So this is not a Vulcan ship. They call it a Federation ship.
Okay. This was a very odd design of a ship. It had the nacelles, and it had like this shuttle pod that was on like the top of it, but then it separates. It goes through a separation procedure, then does this big 270 warp 80 side sled, and then it reverse docks in. Again, Spock also not using the transporter. Interesting. All right. Divine says, why didn't they use the shuttle bay? Interesting. They used the docking port. Don't know why. Anyway, doors open. There comes Spock. A clean-cut Spock, by the way. He cut his hair. All right. He's wearing his black robes, and he comes on. He is there. Chekhov is there. Oh, it's great to see you. And again, Spock, just like Kirk, completely walking off. At least Spock had a reason. He doesn't celebrate emotion. No emotion. Okay? So he just takes off towards the bridge, leaving Chekhov mid-sentence. Good to see ya. All right. He immediately goes to the bridge, opens up the turbo lift, and surprises everybody. Kirk was surprised to see him. Bones was surprised to see him. Uhura was surprised to see him. Everybody was surprised to see him, except he just goes straight to business.
Bones comes down from sickbay. Bones is like not on the bridge. He makes a trip in, brings his favorite nurse. Is like, hey, we're gonna go see someone.
Well, which by the way is not a nurse anymore. She is an MD now. Was that not Chapel? That was Chapel, right?
I don't think that was Chapel. Was it?
I'm pretty sure that was Chapel. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure that was, that was Chapel. Chapel MD.
Okay.
All right. So, yeah, she's not a nurse anymore. That was actually something that was called out when Bones first beamed on the ship was that, Chapel's an MD, so I'm going to need a good new nurse. That's right. I hear Chapel's an MD now, so I'm going to need a good new nurse. But Bones and Chapel worked side by side. All right. So, anyway, Bones comes down with Chapel, and now we actually, using Strange New Worlds, have a little bit more insight into that prime timeline where Chapel and Spock had a thing, apparently, at one point many, many years ago. All right? So Chapel comes down. It's great to see you, Spock, and blah, blah. And Spock doesn't say a word to any of them. Straight to business. Goes over to the science station, relieves Decker, says, do you mind? Decker was like, oh, yeah, tripping over himself to get up. Spock sits down and says, I know what happened with your warp bubble. All right, I'm going to go to engineering, and I'm going to change the fuel mix. So next thing I thought was a little odd was, how did he know about the warp bubble? How did he know that it was fuel? How did he know about this whole thing with the rock? Again, speed of plot, fine. This was a hole for me right here. I mean, they were in this warp bubble for a long period of time. They probably traveled a long distance. He was monitoring communications, which he said, but they weren't communicating. They weren't communicating. They didn't send anything back to Starfleet. I just thought this was a weird spot for me, Bubba Joe. How did Spock even know what was going on? And then he just comes in and fixes everything in a matter of seconds. Stupid.
Well, because he's Spock.
He's Spock. Yeah, there you go. So he goes to engineering. He goes to fix stuff. Bubba Joe, this reintroduction of Spock back onto the bridge, again, left me dissatisfied. Now, it less dissatisfied because it's Spock. He's emotionless, right? That was how it was supposed to be, and I get that. But I just felt like these reunion scenes missed something for me. I don't know.
Well, I think that with Spock, at least, like, people are reaching out to him to say, hey, let's, and even later on, Kirk is like, Spock, it's me. Like, and Bones is like, Spock, it's me. We're friends. And Spock is like, no, I'm good.
Yeah. Don't give a crap about any of you. As a matter of fact.
But as you said, that's where Spock is in this movie. Like, it seems very consistent with who Spock is. He's here because he sensed this cataclysmic emergency. The only reason he didn't finish Kolinar is because he sensed this cataclysmic emergency. He knew the Federation was going to send somebody. He probably suspected it was going to be Kirk because that's what Kirk does.
Yeah.
Right. And that he wanted to go help. Right. So Spock is in tune with the universe in a way that other people are not necessarily tuned. And he's like, I want to go see this intelligence. This thing.
Now you're getting closer.
I want to embrace this thing.
I don't think he was there for Kirk at all. He wasn't there because the Federation was going to send Kirk. He wasn't there to help them in any way, shape, or form. I think the whole reason
he was there to help them get there. Like, that's his. Like, he's like, I'm aware of what's going on in the universe. Let's go. Let me go get there. I want to get there.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, Divine, almost like a free ride. We see this start right here. All right. But there are some undertones for the next several scenes that kind of will draw Spock's loyalty into question. At this moment right here, we know as the audience, he lost Kolinar for this. He gave up. He abandoned Kolinar because he sensed this entity. All right. Not necessarily the imbalance in the universe, but the entity. He felt what the entity feels. All right. So then he's on the ship. He is dead set on getting to the entity. He's not there for Kirk. He's not there for Bones. He is there from our vantage point for a very selfish reason. He's got to get to the entity. All right. So that is the end of this particular interaction, and there's more to support this a little bit later. Bones and Kirk and Spock meet the chat. Spock says he's been communicating. He can sense the entity. The entity is transmitting its thoughts to him. Kirk is disappointed at how cold and emotionless Spock is. As a matter of fact, Spock wouldn't even sit down. You remember they were in the chorus. He was like, would you please sit down? Like, Spock was not there for socialization. He was not there for Kirk. He was there to get to the entity. They talk for a couple of minutes. Spock exits. Bones then is the first person to say it. Right here, this scene is set. Are we sure that Spock is here for the right reason? Like, he's not here for us. Bones knew it right off the bat. He's not here for us. Do we know that we can trust him? Is he going to put the crew of the Enterprise above his own fascination, above his own need to communicate with this entity? Like, this entity, according to Spock, this entity, he feels like has the answers to the universe.
Correct. I think that this... So, like, you were upset about the science before. I'm upset about this Bones interaction.
Okay.
Because Bones has had 5 years with Spock. And at no point in those 5 years did Spock ever put the crew at risk. Now, this is a less emotionally available Spock, but why would you think we worked together for 5 years, haven't seen you for a while, you went to purge emotions, and now I think you're going to put the ship at risk?
Because he acts like he doesn't like anybody, bro. He shows up and he's like, F you, and F you. All right.
So, DJ, so you and I worked together on the podcast for 3 years.
If you think that I would show up and be cold and emotionless and just not care about you in any way, shape, or form, just like, hello, Bubba. And that's it, right? That's it. You're not going to think I'm upset at you?
I would not assume that you are going to put other people's lives at risk because you've come in and are emotionless, especially if you were already emotionally distant in the years that we worked together more closely.
He might have been emotionally distant, but this is different.
There's a big difference. There's a big difference in between, I've worked with someone for 5 years. They are a good person. They've never done anything to indicate that they would put other people's lives at risk.
I believe this Spock was unrecognizable. Okay? I genuinely I feel like this Spock concerned them because of how much colder and how much more distant he had become. He was just gone, not communicating, never kept up, didn't write emails, all right? Then just all of a sudden shows up because there's an entity speaking to me across the cosmos. I think it was a very fair perspective for them to say, like, what's his motivation here? Like, this is not the same guy we know, right? This is not the same guy.
What's his motivation that's different. To say, why is Spock here? And Spock's like, there's an intelligence out there that is beyond anything I've ever perceived. That's different than saying, he's going to put the ship at risk. We need to watch him. Like, that's like saying, DJ, you used to live with me. You used to be my neighbor, right? And then you moved to a mountain, and mountain people are weird, so now you're going to start killing people.
But you know what? Listen, if you want to jump forward several scenes here, Spock does act recklessly. He does act irresponsibly.
But not to put the ship at risk.
Not at the ship's risk, agreed. But he still acts recklessly and dangerously. And that is exactly what Bones suspected of him doing. Now, whether or not he thought that he could carry through putting the ship at risk, but Spock was clearly willing to be reckless and sacrifice all safety to interact and be able to touch this entity. So Bones was on to something here. Bones was on to something. I think it was a very, very fair.
Own safety. He's willing to risk his own safety.
It was just a question.
I think that Bones was disingenuous.
I think it was just a question. Are you sure? And listen, Kirk wasn't even 1,000% sure either. Hey, I think that he'll be fine. but we'll keep an eye on him. All right. I feel like, and Riskbreaker points out you don't know if the entity is influencing him. I mean, listen, this is like the all-knowing, all-powerful, all-knowledge in the entire universe is calling out to Spock. There's absolutely no way of knowing that he wasn't under the influence.
No,
right?
we
That's
get
certainly
4
possible.
movies later.
All right. Yeah, that's true. So, and then we get another red alert. Another one. We've had many red alerts already this movie. We have another red alert. We're coming into visual contact with the cloud in 3 minutes. All right. First thing that I wrote down here, all right, is there is no running on the bridge. Okay? Listen, the scene was almost as chaotic. The scene was almost as chaotic as when Kirk got on the bridge the first time. There were people full out running, Bubba Joe. You got to think, this room is as small as my studio. This room is as small as your room right now. And there are humans, like 4 of them, just full tilt sprinting across the bridge. This was very cluttered, very chaotic. I did not like that. I know what they were doing. They were trying to I guess, convey the sense of panic. But also, we've had 20 hours, right? Like, we've had some time to get to this thing. Like, all of a sudden now, we're running our asses off. I just thought it was kind of weird, Bubba. Your thoughts on them running through the bridge? Like, all of a sudden now, we're at the cloud, and we're just gonna run. Full tilt.
I have no thoughts on that.
Yeah, I thought it was weird. All right, so anyway, we pull up the visual of the cloud. The cloud begins to scan the Enterprise. All right, Spock says that there is an item at the center of the cloud. Kirk is actually the one who suggests flying into it. All right, they set course. They begin to fly towards the cloud. Then Spock reports that the power energy. Or that the energy coming off of this thing is 12 power energy. That is the quote. 12 power energy. All right. Decker is shocked. Chekhov stutters over himself. What the hell is power energy?
It's made up.
Do we have any comparative metrics for this in any way, shape, or form? Everybody on the bridge is like, oh, 12 power energy. What? 12 power?
Yeah, Lawson is correct.
Yeah.
Lawson is correct. That's more than 11.
All right, 12.
And our scales only go up to 10.
So 12 power energy apparently is a lot. Everybody is shocked except for Spock. Spock appears entranced. He senses curiosity coming from this entity, from the cloud. He senses a longing, a desire, so to speak, an emotionless desire. A weapon is fired from the cloud. Spock reports that it's a type of plasma. It hits the ship, this time turning green, not the blue that disintegrated or scanned the Klingon ships or Epsilon 9 Starbase. But this one is a green one. It starts going through and scanning stuff. It's downloading stuff from the computer. All right. Chekhov is at a station and becomes injured. Chapel comes up to the bridge to treat him, and Spock, then there's this break. So this green plasma weapon, if you will, all right, comes and is now scanning the ship. But it doesn't evaporate or disintegrate the ship like it did with the Klingons. Bubba, why? Why did this weapon interact with the Enterprise differently than the Klingon ships?
Because the Enterprise interacted with it differently.
Well, Kirk was certainly careful. He said, don't scan it. But then we also knew it had 12 power energy. Does that mean that Spock disobeyed a direct order and scanned the entity anyway? He also knew that there was an item at the center of the entity. How did we get this information if we didn't scan it?
So there are almost certainly different types of scans that can be done, right? Something that you can, something like radar or sonar is different than an electrical probe that is, kind to obtain energy. And we see just in a little bit later that this entity, when it probes, is doing something that's actually fairly dangerous, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So there's a difference in between being able to, one ping only. There's a difference between gaining some passive information, like how much energy this thing is emanating, and actually trying to do a penetrative scan to try and grab some information. So I think that passive sensors gave them some information, whereas active sensors are what set the thing off.
Well,
but it's also entirely possible that this is just plot armor.
All right, fair enough. You guys are indicating in chat that there is a difference even with sonar today, active versus passive scanning. So there's that. Kirk was very clear and ordered no connection or no scanning of that. No defensive posture. Decker wanted to raise shields. Kirk said no. All right. So the systems overload. This is happening. Chekhov is injured. We do see Ilea come in and use her Deltan powers. Now, we talked about this just a couple of moments ago, 2 hours ago, when we were talking about what the Deltan's superpowers were. And it wasn't sexual in nature like we thought it was. Deltans had pain-relieving abilities that manifested during tactile contact. It didn't heal the energy. It just relieved Chekhov of his pain. He smiles. He thanks Ilea. And the end of that scene happens there. In the meantime, Spock is over here looking at the entity.
It's entirely possible, based on what you've described this race of people to be, is that it's not relieving the pain. It's just preventing you from feeling it.
She made him horny.
Like he's being healed. He's not healing.
No,
She's
they're not healing
him.
No, they're not healed. It even says the ability does not heal injuries.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not that he's being healed, but it's not that they have the ability to heal, but they have the ability to prevent you from feeling the pain.
Yeah, he was all happy. He was in a moment of euphoria. He was happy. Mind control, says Divine, dulling the pain. Fair enough. Fair enough. Spock, in the meantime, is yeah. You got more.
So it's entirely possible. So Enterprise made a comment that I kind of want to address, because this is kind of getting to the central of why we're here, right? Why does the Enterprise survive? Is it because the entity chose to? Because I believe that the entity has full control over their torpedoes. Okay, that's speculation on my part. And the torpedo is fired at the Enterprise, and because the Enterprise is not provocative, they decide not to do what they've done to all the other ships. All the other ships have been provocative, either with sensors or torpedoes or whatever. There's another theory that Enterprise suggests in the chat, is that it's because the Enterprise shields were upgraded. It's possible that's correct. It's also possible that they chose not to destroy the Enterprise because the Enterprise was not provocative. Or it's possible that the torpedo from the entity got there, and that torpedo is part of their scanning mechanism, and they determined that the Enterprise is not that what the Enterprise represents is not a threat, and that they want to not destroy them or not transport them or whatever we think that this blue torpedo is doing. But regardless of whatever it is, it does not destroy the Enterprise, right?
I have another theory.
That's the end result.
I have another theory. Is that in the process of the entity scanning this Enterprise, the entity discovers the carbon-based units. All right. Everything about this has been about V'ger reconnecting with its creator, knowing that the carbon-based units infest the planet that the creator comes from. I halfway wonder if V'ger has amassed enough information, Bubba, to know that humans are the step on the right path. Like, these humans, okay, they're from the creator's planet. These humans can get us the rest of the way. Let's get some more information. And they go into the scanning piece.
Do you believe that the humans on the station were not carbon-based units?
Okay, fair point. Yeah, good call.
The Klingons weren't carbon-based units?
The Klingons were provocative. And if you remember, Epsilon 9 also scanned. That could have been perceived as provocative, all right, because they were scanning.
Exactly.
Yeah. So again, yeah, probably lending more credence to your theories that they appeared docile. They appeared peaceful.
And just because what we're saying is the shields are holding, as opposed to, the other ships got destroyed. Again, it's all perception, right? The other ships were not destroyed, right? They were, you call it digitized, they were recreated. Like, they are, they changed existence, okay, is a good way of putting it, right?
Well, we don't know that yet. All right, we haven't gotten to the part yet.
We do not know that yet, but we do eventually know that. We do eventually realize that, because there are pictures of when Spock ends up going into the entity, which, again, we're jumping ahead. We see a picture of the station, a portion of the station. So assimilated, whatever you want to call it, Like
Assimilated.
we know
I'm glad that you point that out.
The perception is that you are destroyed, right? That is the perception.
Mhm.
And so this thing looks like it's an attack on the shields, and you're looking at it going, if this happens again, our shields will not withstand it. Well, maybe it's not an attack at all, right?
Yeah.
And so it's we do not know what this represents.
Well,
We know what we saw happen. Ship was there, ship is gone. Shields,
Yes.
they dropped shields. We know that that's, but we do not know that we would be destroyed. We do not know that this torpedo thing, this torpedo-like thing, is going to destroy the ship. We don't know any of that. They don't know that. They don't talk about it, right? All we know is the effect that it had, which was draining the shields. All we know is it made the Klingon ships disappear as opposed to be destroyed.
After this first weapon is fired, Spock is analyzing everything and identifies a communication that actually came from the entity.
Yep.
It was missed by everybody else because it was on a frequency Spock described as hundreds of thousands of megahertz higher than normal, and so fast that it was less than 1 millisecond. It would have been noise to anybody else, but he detects this communication and then tries to slow it down so he can interpret what that communication said.
Which also adds credence to the fact that this torpedo is not actually a weapon and is in fact a way to communicate.
Absolutely. Spock interprets the message as basically being the Federation's own friendly, they called it a lingo message. I think that's actually something that is done now, right? In today's military, isn't there lingo transmissions, friendly lingo transmissions? So that's what Spock identifies just on a frequency, just unrecognizable to anybody else. So Spock then is going to have the computer design a response. In the meantime, a second weapon is fired. They now fear that this second weapon will overpower the shields and destroy the Enterprise because they can't withstand another attack. They're under the clock. Spock transmits the new message, and immediately, all right, there you go, Bubba Joe, lending credence to his theory that they have complete and full control over their probe/weapons/whatever they are. It just disappears. All right, it just disappears. It's gone now. It right before it strikes the Enterprise, it ceases to exist because V'ger has now received the communication from Spock. Then,
well, not just received it in a format that they can understand.
That it recognized, absolutely.
Right, because the station was also sending that communication, right? The station was also trying to communicate with it, and they got zapped, right?
Yeah. So at this point,
this is kind of, again, this is also a part of the bigger theme of the movie of understanding communication lingo, right? We skip all the way to the end, which I won't, but the end is all about a miscommunication, right?
Yeah, absolutely it is.
So, I mean, this is all about trying to communicate in a way that the other entity understands.
Now, at this point, I went to pee. I don't remember when Ilea gets sucked up. They enter the cloud first, right? Here's what I wrote, because this was another really, really long non-dialogue scene. Long story short, Spock suggests that we're going to fly in, all right? So we enter the cloud, and we begin a 20 to 25-minute fly-in of this cloud. My simple question is this.
Here's a question for you. They say that the cloud is 20 hours from Earth. Is that the edge of the cloud or the center of the cloud? Because if the center of the cloud is 20 hours from Earth, I bet you the edge of the cloud is there.
Is already there, yeah, because of its astronomical units.
They made up they used the science terms that sounded fancy, and it's completely unrealistic.
Yeah, it's absolutely wild here that they get to this part. This is, when is Ilea taken, Broken Wolf? I don't think she's taken yet.
They fly into the entity.
Yeah, they fly first. Yeah. So let me mention this, all right, because this is funny to me. When we enter the cloud, we see these glow lights, right? We start to seeing like rope lighting. We're seeing all these weird and crazy designs. Where in the hell did these all come from? This right now is a cloud, all right? We have not actually entered the entity yet. There's a cloud around it. What is this? We start to fly into the cloud, Bubba Joe, and we see airport runway lights basically guiding them in. We see this 25-minute drive-in. All right, we're just going down the country road. It would be like you driving up my driveway to my mountain. All right, you're just coming in. There's no talking. We're just staring at the screen, looking at all these different lights. And every 2 to 3 minutes, all right, the landscape completely changes. We see one landscape, then we see another landscape, and then we see 4 or 5 different Windows 95 screensavers. All right, is what we see, which, by the way, is impressive because this is still 1979. We see these screensavers that's exactly what they are, Bub. They're just different scene collections. What the hell was the actual cloud? What was it?
So the cloud is the gathering of everything they've absorbed, right?
I don't think it was.
It starts off as, okay.
I don't.
It then?
Well, that's what I'm asking. I don't know, because if you remember, well, and we'll get to this point, when Spock entered the entity, he traveled through an orifice.
Yes, but that is part of the entity. But the cloud is the gathering of mass and energy of everything that they've traveled through to get to this point.
Okay. Well,
we didn't
see the digitized stuff until we went through the sphincter. So we went through the starfish sphincter. We didn't see any of that stuff. Which,
well, we haven't gotten there yet. We haven't gotten there yet, right? That's different. The entering of the entity is where you actually are entering into the construct that was carrying this, right? The center point, right? But the cloud is kind of, everything that it's energy, right? Because if you remember, the cloud did not fire on the station. It just passed through it.
Yeah.
And that's what caused the station to go away.
Neil suggests that it was there to disguise the main vessel, which we never knew was an actual thing. We did get to a vessel eventually, which we'll talk about. But yeah, there's different chambers, right? We go through another part of the cloud, and there's flashbangs and a corridor. It's like all these different screensavers, to form this sequence. They finally.
So again, let's think about this for a second, okay? Again, if we are to believe the stipulation that it is over 2 AUs in diameter, okay? Think about just in our solar system, if you were to go from the Earth to the sun to the opposite side where the Earth would be in half a year, okay? That's the area we're talking about. Well, just think about our solar system. What exists in that space?
A lot of stuff.
Well, the Earth has a moon.
Yeah.
We got Venus. We got Mercury. We got whole planets in that space, okay? And this thing is enormous and theoretically has been continuing to grow, right?
Okay.
And is moving through space. And
I can get behind that.
It is collecting
a collection of
gases,
data. Yeah.
Energy, right? It's, potentially planets, right? It is collecting things to help prepare and use as either fuel or just protection or whatever. Like, this is an entity of collecting things.
Okay, so we're driving through the collection of the galaxy. All right.
Yes. And we haven't gotten to their ship or their core. That's what we stop in front of.
Yeah.
It has the orifice that Spock enters eventually.
Well, we do finally arrive at what appears to be some kind of core. Now, before we do that, I actually just had a costume observation. At this point, we've changed out of our uniforms. We're all wearing just like the relaxed white, like the white one pieces. With like the Batman utility belt thing. Did you notice that? What was this big old belt buckle? Does anybody have a theory on that? I never saw them pull a tricorder out. I never saw them pull a phaser. Communications were on their watch. What was this big old belt? This big belt thing that was on their uniforms? I'm just curious about this. That was your life monitor? That was a life monitor, says Fisty. It was a life monitor, but we never talked about it. Yeah, it was their fanny pack where they kept their credit cards and so forth. Yeah, it was not stylish, okay? I mean, maybe they wanted it to be. All right. It was a bio monitor, says Enterprise. Okay. Well, whatever. I had a note, a costume note, that I thought this was something weird that was never addressed. We never saw it again. and everybody was just in like, you know, their casuals, right? This was their military fatigues. Everybody was just hanging out in these white uniforms, short sleeve. You saw all Kirk's arm hair. Buddy, he was a hairy guy. All right? William Shatner is a hairy guy. You saw this forest of arm hair poofing out from underneath his uniform. It was very funny to me. Anyway, so we get to do you know what it was, Bubba Joe? Just a very fancy little fanny pack? You didn't even look at it.
No information on that.
I didn't even look at the fanny pack. The actors hated those uniforms. Really? Because they looked like they were probably the most comfortable uniforms that they had ever made. They were just T-shirts. They were just T-shirts. It was crazy. Anyway, all right, so we get to what appears to be this kind of a core, okay? Kirk orders an orbit of 500 meters. And again, I'm looking at this, all these structures. Now, I wrote in my notes that I was curious about all this stuff. Bubba, you might have answered that. Just the collection of stuff for hundreds of years of travel throughout the galaxy. But I was curious, what is the stuff, the material, the fluff, these designs? It was, at this point, it looked like structures that were inside. We weren't inside the vessel yet, but we were still looking at these structures. There was a part that, like, right above that orifice, Bubba Joe, that looked like an ocean, but it was like above us. I had like recollection to the movie Maui, where like they're underneath the ocean, like they're in the realm of monsters, and you look up and the ocean is above you, kind of thing. It was weird. There was a lot of stuff, this ocean and space, and I was kind of curious where like all this stuff came from. I know James Cameron was not doing movies at this time, but it had a very James Cameron kind of feel, just with all these weird, very random designs.
So, I mean, do you realize what gaseous clouds look like?
Well, they don't look like buildings, dude.
They look like oceans.
Okay, fine. All right. But this ocean was like in a very specific. Anyway, all right. I get it. It's fine. The structures on the outside of the entity's hull do actually have ship functions, says Enterprise. Yeah, but I mean,
I would agree.
Like what? Yeah, the visual effects team was showing off. That's what I'm thinking.
The core of the ship is the ship that launched from this planet, that launched this.
No.
Again, without spoiling.
Wait, maybe you were getting ready to say I don't want to spoil it. The core of the ship was the ship that came from the machine world.
The core of the ship is the centralized facility of the civilization that took this thing and launched it back towards Earth. Okay. Everything else outside of that is support structure. It is additional environment. It is things they've absorbed and things they've collected to continue to build their support.
Well, this was a very long sequence. All right. Almost as long as our show has been today. A very long sequence of flying along various weird looking designs and construction. No dialogue. Take a shot. All right. That's what I wrote right there. Then we get to this area of glowy, spiky balls. I just felt like these graphics were so random. Now, again, you say that random is fine because there's randomness in the universe. But for the movie part of this, Bubba, this was just very weird, random stuff. These big, bright, orange, glowy, spiky balls. I don't know. That was a random thing. A plasma reactor, says Devon. Okay, fine. Yeah, there's just weird. There were 6 of them. It's big, orange, glowy balls with big spikes coming out of them. Anyway, they get to like this wide open area. All right. And Kirk orders them to hold position. A weapon is fired. All right. This is where we lose Ilea. All right. Now that we're inside the cloud, we are near the orifice to get us into the central structure. Another probe is fired. Red alert. Again, the beam penetrates the bridge, and now we see this plasma energy in a perfect column that is essentially now their probe, Bubba Joe. We're inside the entity. This is their maybe more more aggressive scan, or the active scan, if you will. It starts coming through. It hits the Spock station. Spock identifies it as a probe. It gets to a computer console and starts downloading everything, all right? Starfleet strength, ship records. Kirk is having a freak-out moment. And right then, Spock actually does maybe answer one question that Bones and Kirk might have had, because in order to not... It was basically hacking, all right? And Spock smashes the console to prevent the entity from getting their strategic Starfleet data. The probe then attacks Spock for his interference, shocks him, does the weird dance moves, all right, and shocks him to death, and then throws him away from the scanner. And the probe continues to move around the bridge, and then gets to Ilea. For whatever reason, decides that Ilea is the one she's going to take. Now, it could have been her Deltan power. All right. Don't know. Maybe they sensed some kind of whatever her superpower was. All right. The mind control, whatever. Ilea the Deltan was chosen by the probe. It jumps onto Ilea. It's scanning her. She looks like she's in pain, although probably more scared than anything. And then all of a sudden, gone. Disappears. Just like the Klingon ships, just like Epsilon 9, she's gone. All right. Danny said it's not it's the AI of V'ger. Well, the probe. It was the probe. All right. That went. Divine says it went towards Decker first, and Ilea stepped in. Maybe. I don't necessarily remember that.
I think it actually went to Chekhov first.
No, he was injured in the previous scene. This one went to Spock's station first, but to download all of their stuff.
To Chekhov first.
Did it? Okay. Well, it's all over the place. All right. It ran all over the bridge, but it lands on Ilea. All right. And then scans her. She's gone. Boom, gone. All right. So she disappears. Now we're all trying to figure out what just happened. All right. And we're taking a look at the data. That's right. It zapped Spock, then to Ilea. Decker tried to interfere, zapped back, then Ilea disappears. Thank you. All right. At this point, the Cloud locks a tractor beam onto the Enterprise and pulls it inside a starfish's bunghole. All right. Which is the only way that you could describe what we saw on camera. This was the butthole of a starfish. All right. Bubba, this scene had me wondering. All right. And I joke ahead of time, but now seriously, the design of this aperture looked fluidic. And I'm curious, just off the top of your head, if you felt like this was biological in nature, if this was fluidic or if it was metallic. Do you felt like they were metal doors? Did you see? You know what I'm talking about? It looked like they were folding over on each other. How did you start to think that this might have been a biological organism here at this point?
Nope.
Well, what did you think it was?
I thought it was a ship
with a starfish bunghole.
It's not a starfish bunghole.
I really just wanted to get him to say it, guys. That's why I kept saying it. All right, I do. I like my apps. You're right, Wristbreaker. All right. But yeah, it was, Divine says, no, seriously, biologically, it was very similar to like an octopus mouth. All right. Like it just the way, again, cool design. Probably that's all it was, Bubba Joe. I was looking for some kind of narrative tie to this design. I don't know that there is one. It might have just been cool graphics. But we are now what appears to be at the door, right? The separation between the Cloud and the central ship.
So much of this movie is just, we can do something cool with graphics.
Yeah.
So we're going to do something cool with graphics.
I agree.
Like, so much of this movie is that. Whether it's the ship flyby, which, again, you and I enjoyed, so much of this movie is, we haven't had the budget to do fancy graphics. Let's do fancy graphics.
Well, I'm telling you, they went all out. I don't know how much money they spent on fancy graphics for its time. but there was so much. It was like they took the entire special effects library and said, okay, we're going to do that one, 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 and we'll do that one twice. I mean, it was just, we did all of them, all right? So we were in this tractor beam. We're being pulled in now through this orifice. We pass more weird glowy stuff. Decker wants to fire phasers. Spock disagrees. Then Kirk and Bones exchange yet another glance. Already Spock smashed the console, preventing Starfleet's secrets from being taken by V'ger. All right. But they exchange glances yet again, questioning Spock's loyalty to the ship or to the science of the entity. All right. We pass more weird, huge structures. And we get closer to the starfish butthole. It starts to close. All right. It's what do you want me to call it? The starfish orifice?
There you go.
Orifice. Okay. It's an orifice. The starfish orifice has started to close. The tractor beam is disengaged. Spock now is getting this sense, this communication with the entity saying that the entity is curious about us. All right, so we decided we're going to go on in. Kirk orders thrusters. We go through the starfish aperture, and there's more pretty lights and more stuff that we see, more graphics. All right, we're approaching as we head towards this orifice, but guess what? We are cut off by, yet again, another red alert. This one is an intruder alert. All right, an intruder alert. Everybody report to Lieutenant Ilea's quarters. Okay, maybe they chose the Delton, and maybe the Delton was the navigator, Bubba Joe, because you were right all along, and they just needed a hot chick for this scene because they walk into Ilea's quarters, and there she is, butt-ass naked in the shower. This had a very weird science, like, great vibe to it. I mean, there's your hot, naked woman in the shower, which, by the way, is a sonic shower, so why was she wet? Okay? She was dripping in water. There was your sex symbol scene right there. Okay? Right there. They go into Ilea's quarters, and Kirk sees her. Okay? Then she gets herself a robe, and she cuts out. And this is now Ilea, and she's got this little, yeah, I know, J-Babes. Then she's got this little probe, all right? She starts communicating with them, and Ilea indicates that, and I say Ilea, when I say Ilea from this point forward, yeah, they said it was a sonic shower, engineer, right? They did say it was a sonic shower. Wait, it was a sonic shower, right?
I don't know that they said that. Oh, yes. Intruder located in the sonic shower.
In the sonic shower. Yeah, I thought it was a sonic shower, but yeah, she was wet. All right, so yes, it was a sonic shower. Anyway, they start talking to Ilea. From this point forward, I'm going to refer to Ilea as the probe, okay? Because very quickly, Bones identifies that this is a mechanism, all right? It's not Ilea. Ilea even identifies herself as a V'ger probe to observe the carbon-based units infesting the ship. Ilea indicates that V'ger is seeking the creator, and that she was given this form so that she could come onto the ship and observe the carbon-based life forms as they head to Earth to find the creator. She is scanned in sickbay. They find down to the smallest detail that she has been duplicated, Bubba Joe. She is a mechanism, but she is duplicated down to the detail. Her heart, they looked at her heart. They looked at her brain. They looked at all this other stuff, all right? Ironically, while she's being scanned, Will Decker comes in, and she softens up. Now, this actress, I got to go back and look. I don't remember what her name was. Where is Ilea? Persis Kambata is the name of this actress. She was phenomenal, Bubba Joe, because the acting that she did with her face from this point forward in the movie, I thought was really astounding. Like, up to this point, it was fine. She was just another pretty face. At this point moving forward, she had to be Brent Spiner. She had to be an android who did all of her acting with her facial expressions. And I thought this was very, very powerful because when Will Decker showed up in sickbay, she was no longer a mindless automaton. She was no longer a mechanical probe, but she recognized Will Decker. Like, there was a moment of softness in her eyes when she recognized Decker. All right? I thought this was a really powerful scene, Bubba, and I'm curious your reaction to it. Like, this was the first note that we had that V'ger might have had a vulnerability, that V'ger might have had potentially some semblance of compassion or emotion. Or so we thought.
Would you like an honest answer?
Yeah.
We've spent about 3 hours longer talking about this movie than we should have.
Okay. You just want to end it? Cool. We'll end it.
No, DJ, like, you're making like huge mountains out of things that are not real. Like, you want to say she did a fantastic job of representing kind of a change of character for her? Yeah, she did. Like, she did a really good job of representing that she is now a different person and a different entity, right? And that she is representing something other than the character she started with. Although the character she started with was a little stiff to begin with, but get past that, right? So this is a different level of stiff, but yeah, it's a different character she's representing, and the actress did a good job of doing that. But we're now at 3.5 hours on a 2-hour movie that had about an hour's worth of dialogue.
Because we're having a conversation.
Okay. I'm tired, DJ. Like, I am no longer interested in this conversation. I'd be happy to do a summary of where I think this movie ends up and why I think it, but I am no longer interested in having this conversation.
Okay. Well, we are at our time, so we can wrap it up into a part 2 later on, I suppose. Yeah, as Garen, the analysis is longer than the movie. So what we'll do is we'll do a cut right here. And because we are at our time, we are going to have to finish the rest of the movie another time. On the bright side, Bubba Joe, I am on page 4 of my notes out of 6. So like we're over halfway with my notes. Yeah, I know, Divine. Okay. He gave me homework, but he doesn't like that I did it. I did homework. I did good homework. All right.
I just wanted you to watch the movie recently, and you had said you hadn't watched it for a decade, so it's a good thing that you watched it, because
I know
there are things you miss and pick up, right? And I think so. The problem I have with this movie, right, is there are a lot of, and we've seen them already at this point, and we've talked about some. There are a lot of inconsistencies in this movie, right? Characters are behaving inconsistently. You think Kirk is behaving inconsistently at the beginning. I happen to disagree. I think Bones is acting inconsistently in his relationship to Spock. You disagree. I think that there are a lot of inconsistencies in this movie, depending on your point of view, right? And then the movie is just a glorified, what kind of special effects can we do in 1979?
There was a lot of that. There was a lot of that.
Right? That's all the movie is trying to take this general structure of what the original series characters were, twisting them in a way that may or may not make sense, and just filling in an hour and a half of special effects that were the best at the time. And that, to me, doesn't make for a very good movie. That, to me, does not make for a very entertaining movie. Like, I recognize the impact that this movie has on Star Trek as a whole, right? Without this movie, we don't get The Wrath of Khan. We don't get The Voyage Home. We don't get the Undiscovered Country. We may not even get The Next Generation, right? Without this movie, we don't get anything that happens after that. There's a high probability that Star Trek just dies with the original picture, with the original series, right? So the monument of what this movie represents and how it brought Star Trek back from the brink and continued to drive Star Trek into the future, you cannot undersell how important this movie is to Star Trek as a whole, okay? But when you look at what this movie is in terms of the quality of movie and the quality of acting, there are very few things, and the script, there are very few things to pull on. There is a twist at the end, which we haven't gotten to, and I'm not going to spoil because we want to talk about it, and that's fine. But that's it, right? It's basically a regular episode of Star Trek they made into a 2-hour movie by jamming it in of special effects. And to me, that made for an uninteresting movie.
See, I actually agree with a lot of that it could have been a 1-hour episode. It was jam full. I wrote that all over this place, man. I was so disillusioned with the inconsistency, if you will, of all the special effects, right? Like, there was so much visual glare that made no sense whatsoever. I do.
And I'm not certain. Again, so I have not watched the original series. As I've told you, I've tried many times and I've failed many times to actually get through even an episode. Okay. I've seen clips. I know some of what happens as a general story, but I have never actually watched even probably a full episode, much less even one of the 3 seasons of the original series. I've tried and failed multiple times. I don't know if they were better about their technical jargon in the original series than they were in this movie, but in this movie, it's bad.
Oh,
right?
no.
As someone,
it was worse.
So that's fine, right? But to me, that takes away, right? Now, does that mean that Star Wars is better on their tech? No, they make mistakes. Stargate makes mistakes. Sci-fi makes mistakes, right? But to me, even for the level of technical jargon that I expected from a movie in the 1970s, this one still falls short. And that frustrates me as a Star Trek fan, right? Someone who wants to watch this movie and appreciate what it represents to the franchise, right? Because it does represent something huge to the franchise. And so it's important for us to say this movie represents this to the Star Trek franchise. But if you look at the movie and you try to come up with things that say this movie is great, it's really hard to find those great things about this movie.
So the story, and we'll come back on our next episode and talk more about the story. But as we leave our audience in a cliffhanger, if you will, to be continued, the story I actually thought was good. I mean, if you condense it and get rid of the worthless stuff, the story was good. It would have been a great episode of Star Trek, right? You have this entity and you have its desire and its mission, and then you have its conclusion and whether or not it was good or evil and what it was doing. I mean, even the technical jargon probably a little loose, but what the Enterprise crew observed with this thing, what they saw it do, was Star Trek.
So let's put a pin in this. I have one question for you, and then because it sounds like you want to continue with your notes in another episode, another podcast, and we can do that. I'm just really tired right now, and I'm just not.
It has been 3 hours. In fairness, Bubba's not used to the 3 hours.
Let me ask you this question, DJ. Okay, which order did you watch the Star Trek movies?
Order of release.
Was this the first Star Trek movie you watched? Of all of the times you've watched Star Trek movies,
no.
Was this the first one that you watched?
No,
What was the first one you watched?
It would have probably been TNG movies. It would have been much, much later. See, I didn't come back and watch the original series until after I was in TNG.
So for me, the very first one I watched was Wrath of Khan. Okay. And then I watched Wrath of Khan. I didn't get to go watch the third. I watched Voyage Home.
You watched them in theaters?
I watched.
God, you're old.
I saw Voyage Home in theaters. Wrath of Khan I saw at a school activity. It was like the stay up late to midnight. It was like maybe a New Year's Eve thing, or whatever. But I was like 8 or something at the time, right? But we got to watch Wrath of Khan, and then I didn't get to see 3 because I didn't get to go to the theaters, and then I got to watch 4, 5, and 6 in theaters. Okay. And so you start with Wrath of Khan, and then I catch 4 and 6, which are really good movies. Okay. We'll spend a lot of time talking about how things are good in those movies. And then you come back and watch this movie and you're like, this launched the franchise? Because in comparison to these other really good movies, and I like the next gen movies, even Nemesis, we'll talk about Nemesis. I think I'm going to be of a different opinion than a lot of people. It's lower on the list, but it is not the bottom. There are really good Star Trek movies. You can make a good movie that is a Star Trek movie, and you can do both. You do not have to make a Star Trek movie that is just good for a Star Trek movie. You can make a good movie that is also Star Trek.
Agreed.
And that if you start from there and then you watch this movie, you're like, what is going on? If you started with this, or you started with the original series and moved into this and watched it in, say, chronological order, it's entirely possible you have a different opinion of this movie. That this movie was such a huge step up in the quality and it's consistent, and that's
10
possible.
years. 10 years had passed
That's
between
not where
season
I
3.
started.
Yeah.
That's not where I started. My very first Star Trek thing I watched was Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, this I will possibly agree with that. This film was light years ahead of the original series, in my opinion. All right, in both the acting style, the graphics, the effects, so forth. It was wildly different. 8 years had passed. And yeah, if you compare the original series to this, it was wildly, wildly different. I think it was much more advanced and much better. There was less overacting. There still was some, all right, but it was just less weird. You know, like, I'm going back to the original series. Of course, you didn't watch it. But, I mean, we've got scenes where Sulu's got that sword, and we've got Kirk slapping himself. And you know, this is just, you know, the horror in the captain's chair. You know, this show was so weird in its original series. This was the first time Star Trek started to feel like a normal movie production to me. Now, granted, I didn't watch it in real time. Like, this was much later when there were other movies out. So when I watched this, Bubba, it felt more like a normal movie experience than watching the original series television show, for example, because that was just weird, right? It was cringy. Yeah, Aries, I agree with that. But we've got more, and we will leave you with this one right here. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been on for over 3 hours. Bubba Joe is tired. He's already missing the early bird special at Ryan's. So
already missed the happy hour, cheap snacks. I'm not drinking. I'm just getting those cheap snacks with cheap apps. Like,
ladies and gentlemen,
you're gonna owe me. You're gonna owe me some cheap apps.
I will get you some cheap snacks. I'll DoorDash them to you post haze. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest, and thank you very much for being here for our monthly Between the Arcs into the Star Trek universe. Bubba Joe is here. Yes. We hope you guys enjoyed our analysis a little bit, and I'm going to give Bubba Joe homework. See, now I don't have homework for the next show. My homework's already done. I'm going to save it here. And Bubba Joe has homework for the next episode. So we'll get into that. Also,
is it
coming
the
up,
same homework?
Huh? It is the same homework. It's the same homework. You've got a whole month.
I suspect that even they could not have spent 3 hours on the original motion picture.
I bet they could have.
I bet they
spend 2 hours on a 45-minute episode. So I'm just saying, they can do it.
Yes, but a 45-minute episode that they choose to do, that they can pick and say, this is a quality episode for these things.
You picked this movie.
So my plan
you picked
was
it.
for us. No, my plan was for us to pick what we thought was the worst movie and rank them from worst to best, and then start somewhere in the middle and kind of go up or down from that to determine, was this really better or worse than that? And then we can figure out where exactly we want to be and like come up with a definitive ranking. But it sounds like you and I are going to be vastly different in our individual evaluation of where this movie is.
Amazing. I cannot imagine that we have different opinions. Ladies and gentlemen, the yin to my yang. It is the lovable Bubba Joe. All right. I can't imagine that we have different opinions. Shocking. All right, guys.
Shocking.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the lovely Bubba Joe. Thank you very much for being here, buddy. We'll catch you on the next one. Hopefully all of our audience is still here for the next one. You think the voyage home was worse? Bubba Joe. Ace says the voyage home was the worst.
That is incorrect.
I kind of like that one. I like voyage home too.
Voyage home is easily a top 5.
Yeah, I like that one. I thought that one was all right. We'll talk more about it. We've got lots of stuff to break into when it comes to the Star Trek universe, and I am going to very much enjoy doing these walkthroughs. All right, it's going to be a lot of fun. All right, Bubba Joe, thank you very much. Appreciate you. We'll catch you on the next one. In the meantime, I would like to invite all of you guys to visit our website at TalkingTrekSTFC.com. TalkingTrekSTFC.com, where you can find links over to our YouTube channel. You can find links to our Twitch channel, our merchandise store, where we got some brand new stuff up, and you can find links to our you can find links over to our Patreon, which I have posted last night's Studio B absolutely free for everybody. You want to know why? It was Beck's birthday celebration, and we have indeed celebrated Beck's birthday by giving you guys all a birthday gift. It is a free episode of Studio B, and we played a lot of music from when Beck was a baby Beck. And it's a great episode. I hope you guys go check it out and have a lot of fun. And when you're in there, you can sign up to support this show through Patreon. I would like to say thank you to those folks now. I haven't done this in a minute, and that's shame on me. So I want to say thank you very much to Iron Chef, Virtual Army. This is everybody. All Patreons, regardless of the dollar amount. Thank you guys so very, very much. Iron Chef, Virtual Army, Macrack, Shady Pines, Lobot, Ripper Loves Mining, Rocky Mountain, Tagora, Living in Griffin's Head, Renegade, Ransusi, Hank, Ape, DJ Gur, MC101, Wayfarer, Louis P, Blue Plague, Pez Loco, Chris, Gopher, Grog, Edward, Archangel, Smoke Mohawk, Jet Ski, Papa Smurf, Madam Stargazer, Patrick, Captain Jack Morris, Z-Man, Vinium Scorpionus, Archer, and Hani, Indominus, Casey Jones, K9 Tooth. I just lost my place. K9 Tooth, Third Tail, A-Fox, Judge Cran, Bamenkas, Captain Q, Game Jr., Vegas, Admiral Inwater, Scarlet Hawk, DJ's got rated again, Jaga, John Adams, Never Go Full Tilly, Blue Mandalorian, Noxus Exhibitor, Dr. Link, James, Clueless 170 times 7, Gunner, Captain Anders Stevens, Unimatrix, Gornography Addict, Will Webb, Balabom, Medic 213, J-Babes, Dark Knight, Pixelate, Scribbler, Luke, Spectre, Captain Yam, Yukai Nico, Diva Dorsal, McLovin, Griffin, Bearbutt, Thomas, Matters, Shannara, Illuminati, Andalisha, Engineer, Jadzia, DJ's Better Refine More, ISO, Transparental, Sweet and Psycho, Lieutenant Tom Collins, Radio Dad, Jack, Iron Fister, Jongo, Spock 8472, Dastros, Kilda Deal, and Gordon. Thank you guys very much for supporting Talking Trek, a registered trademark and recorded in front of a live studio audience for distribution across podcast platforms everywhere. I'm your friendly neighborhood cat person, Ultimate DJ, saying meow for now. Love you. Made it. Catch you on the next one. Good night, everybody. And just like that, we are out. And I'm going to stop this, and I'm going to hit stop on the YouTube. But if you're still in